Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tetracast, RPG Site's weekly podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres,
It's like the third week I've said it, but what a week, huh?
Mikhail Mandani,
I'm tired, boss.
Adam Vitale,
Hello.
James Galizio,
Hey.
and Chaomin Wu.
Getting destroyed by real life.
Yeah, Chao, explain how you're getting destroyed by real life.
So I own a restaurant business, and what happened was someone broke into the building, destroyed the glass to break in, and they didn't steal anything. You know, that's the stupid part. It's like I was hoping like at least to go in and steal some of my video game device that I left there. At least I could pawn that for thousands of dollars.
It sounds more like the thing that disappointed Child the most isn't that the break-in happened; it's that they didn't steal anything. But you already told us before this podcast. Of course, like, we're glad that like you're safe. Everyone at the establishment is safe. There was like no casualties except that the event happened.
Was this on Valentine's Day?
It was on Family Day.
What is that? The day after Valentine's Day? Is that February 15th?
It was the Monday of this.
Okay. We don't have Family Day here in America.
And so my brother even makes fun of it. It's like this Chinese New Year is totally cursed.
What was Family Day the start of Chinese New Year? I forgot exactly the start.
It was like the day before it.
Okay.
But technically, it is Chinese New Year in China during that time because of their time zone difference, right? But it's like, damn, this is totally cursed.
That's crazy.
Family Day is celebrated on the third Monday of February in Canada. I didn't know that. Today I learned. But yeah,
what do you
not
do
only
on
was it
Family
a
Day?
week. Yeah, what do you do?
Go to Tim Hortons.
I would get their days off, so they probably thought it was the best day to do a break-in.
Crazy.
Well,
we're glad that you're safe, Joe.
We're glad that the only casualty was a door. But yeah, and so not only was it a week in terms of the purview of this podcast, it was a week for our participants. So we're glad that you're able to be with us and with no lasting damage. But yeah, what a week. We have a number of things that we could have let off with outside of Chao's business store, but we'll have to go through them in some order. The main two topics we're going to be talking about on this week is the release of Paranormasight: The Mermaid's Curse, as well as Yeast 10 Proud Nordics. So we'll have a few kind of different topics to touch on for each of those, and then we'll go into the news section, of which there's three other headlines that we probably could go into there, but I'll leave that for after the Games Talk section because there was a lot on that end too. So this podcast is going to have, I don't know if banger is the right term, but headlines throughout the whole thing. So you could probably look at the timestamps and get a preview about what all we're going to talk about. But yeah, we got to start with something. We're going to start with Paranormasight: The Mermaid's Curse. Of course, teased or anticipated and then announced not too long ago at the Nintendo Partner Direct. And we got a review up on the site. And we're going to go over to Josh to kind of talk about Paranormasight: The Mermaid's Curse. I know many of us here have played the original game, Seven Mysteries of Hanjo. A lot of people have anticipated The Mermaid's Curse, kind of a very a cult classic in a way. And even though I don't know if it's been around long enough to be considered a classic, but it's got that sort of vibe. But Josh, you were able to cover The Mermaid's Curse for us. I know you were a big fan of the original game. Just what were your thoughts on this one? And just take us through what this game is, what it's like, how it compares to the original, all that stuff.
Yeah, I was, of course, overjoyed to see when it was first announced at that Nintendo Partner Showcase a few weeks ago. I was, ever since I finished the Seven Mysteries of Honjo, like I hope they do another one. But ever since there were that whole restructuring deal with Square Enix, and there was word like, hey, they're kind of canceling smaller projects behind the scenes. And I'm like, oh man, come on, not Paranormasight. I need another one of these. So it was really, I was glad to see it announced at that partner showcase, and it's another really solid entry in I guess what is now a series of Paranormasight games. It is definitely, I think one of the things that people will notice after if they play the first Paranormasight is this is less scary. There are less horror elements in the Mermaid's Curse compared to Honjo, but there's more interactivity in it. In the sense, like there's more puzzle solving. There's like more there's things that that are given to you that you do with, like let's say a treasure map segment on like where you're trying to find stuff and how that correlates to like another puzzle that you did earlier, or even like segments when you're having a dialogue exchange with someone, and then a box um shows up on the screen, and you have to fill in the blank. Like, hey, in order to proceed, you need to actually type out the correct answer here, and that will rely on you not only paying attention to the dialogue uh, when you're playing the game, but also reading the journal entries, character profiles, and like keywords that are given to you. And just like the first Paranormasight, that like these both character profiles and journal entries are pretty detailed. It's like borderline an educational game in the sense that like you'll get relevant bits of like Japanese history that are pertaining to the game's like themes or legends and myths being explored. And then there'll also be like a lot of characters you won't really get to know them in terms of like just dialogue alone. Like you learn a lot more about them if you read their character profiles, like their background, who can like there are some like very small mentions of other characters that were in the first Paranormasight game, but you don't need to have played the first one to fully appreciate and understand like this one. This is not um like a direct sequel in terms of like there's like characters from the first showing up or like knowing like what happened in the first to get this. But there are, if you play the first one, there will be bits here and there. It's like, oh, they're referencing that, or they're referencing like when they say in the dialogue, the Rite of Resurrection incident a year ago. That was the thing that the Honjo game um, focused on. So yeah, this game takes place a year after it, the summer after the events of the first game. It's a totally, like I said, different cast of characters, different main storyline. At first, like the first protagonist that you explore is Yuza Minakuchi, and he's a diver, or like a diver in training, I guess, at the beginning of the game. And his whole motivation at first in becoming a better diver is to find out the mystery behind his mother's passing 5 years prior, because there was a tragedy that happened, and the way that the locals on this fictional island, remote island of Kamishima, in the real region of the Iseshima region in Japan, they kind of look um, weirdly at Yuza and his family because they feel like that his family is somehow linked to like a series of misfortunes that this place is suffering through. So he's like he wants to clear up not like his family's name, his name, and getting to the bottom of like, hey, what actually happened? And just like the first game, as you progress through the game, you'll unlock other protagonists and their perspectives. So you'll like there'll be like a mysterious girl named Sato Shiranami that you're gonna get to know. You're gonna explore like a totally different character named Arnav Barnum, who's like a foreigner who's looking for mermaids, and Yumiko Shiki, who is part of the Paranormal Affairs Bureau, who were introduced in the first game, but that faction does have representation, like in the first game, where they're kind of the secret police group that explores or investigates paranormal occurrences and activities, and that's like it's a really fascinating flavor of Paranormasight, as I put it in my review, because unlike the first game, like the first game was filled with like really tense encounters. It was filled with like these things called curse stones that can inflict curses when the right conditions are met, and the people who wield these curse stones are curse bearers. And I compared that a lot to like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and how people have stands in that series and so forth. So it's not too dissimilar to that, but it was very tense a lot of the time because people in Honjo were way more confrontational and a bit more devious, because there's a lot more of this element in that game, and much of that game took place during the nighttime when these encounters happen and these showdowns happen. While in Mermaid's Curse, since it's in a tropical region now, and a lot of that game takes place during the daytime, so there's a lot of sunlight, and the part of that feeds into like it being less scary, but there's this underlying tension that it's like building towards. Uh, several friends have already told me, and I also mentioned this in my review when they played through the game. The game kind of proceeds in a really odd manner because there's this new feature in the game called recollection, and throughout there are times throughout the dialogue you can press the left trigger button because there's like this prompt at the left upper left corner to unlock these recollection chapter, and these are like prologue chapters that occur before that interaction happens on where you're at. So you can unlock these pretty early on, almost front loaded with it, and a lot of the early hours in Mermaid's Curse feels like you're playing the game in reverse, which is I thought was really interesting. Where you're given this premise, but before you proceed on, you're kind of backfilling not only Yuza's um like earlier events that happened to Yuza, but then you start unlocking the other protagonists and their prologue stories of like what they're doing, how come they are doing what they are doing at that time early on. So
They're like
it's
playable flashbacks.
yes, yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, so and it's kind of interesting to me that like it proceeds in a very non-linear fashion relative to the first game. The first game is still non-linear in the sense that like you unlock other character perspectives, but the flow of events is usually pushing you forward. While this one is sort of it's pushing you back, and then when you unlock the next character, it proceeds forward because the things that are happening to that character occur in the future relative to where you are in that other previous protagonist, and then you play through that segment, and then you unlock a recollection feature, so you're playing another prologue section, and it's kind of there's one thing I it's a double-edged sword for me, is like I think it's really interesting in concept, but because you're backfilling so much, there are times, especially when you unlock Arnav's perspective, his companion sidekick is a young girl named Cersei, and she feeds you a lot of journal entries that like even heavy-handed for me, which I enjoy this type of like flow in games, but they kind of feed you a lot early on with like kind of backfilling you on like, hey, there's like the information on like the region that you're exploring, historical relevance, and like and the historical the historical bits that they provide you is sort of a lot. Like you get like the whole a somewhat shortened down version because obviously the real life counterpart of like this portion of Japanese history is like of course very long, but there's a certain clan, I won't mention which clan, that is involved in this game that is very prominent throughout Japanese history, and they kind of introduce that and then give you a lot of info very very early on, like they front load it. It's like, okay, that's kind of like I understand why they do it to kind of get everyone on the same page, because the Japanese audience may be more familiar with this clan intrinsically because they probably studied it in school, while overseas people have are probably unfamiliar with this if they didn't like look into Japanese history. So they're trying to get everyone caught up and get a basic baseline understanding early on, which is like I said, double-edged sword. But overall, I like Paranormasight Mermaid's Curse it's like a really 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 good entry. In some ways, like people really love the main cast of Honjo, and there are in some ways this cast is stronger in Mermaid's Curse because I feel like there's a lot more cohesion in the writing. Like like everything comes together a lot more organically compared to the Hanjo, which is still really good, but there are definitely some parts in the latter half of Hanjo which it makes a lot of it kind of gets lost in the sauce, so to speak, at times.
I remember when I played through Seven Mysteries of Hanjo, it was a relatively brief experience. I think that game's like 13 hours, maybe 15 hours. Like it's not a long game, but it's I enjoyed my time with it, but it definitely was not scary, but very unnerving. Like sweaty palms, like due to the art, due to the music, due to like the tension. Um, but I do, now that you've kind of described like the character that's in that game, and of course I haven't played Mermaid's Curse as a point of comparison, but it does kind of feel like there's a little bit of incongruence there, in terms of like you've got, and I forget the names. It's just been too many years. But like the first character that you play as, where you first are introduced to like the I'll call it the facing away mechanic.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's very like got like protagonist energy. Then you have like the detective who is very like charismatic. And then there's the school, not quite delinquent, but like the school athlete character. Like they all are very, very different, almost in a way where it almost feels like they should be a little bit more similar. Uh, the way you described that makes me interested, because I do want to play Mermaid's Curse eventually. Like I think I'll definitely make time for it in like March, because I'm not really interested in Crimson Desert or things like that. Sorry, Crimson Desert. That's right. So I'm interested to see that comparison for myself between the different casts between the two games, and also like the different vibes. You talk about how Mermaid's Curse is a little less scary, but still has that like tension buildup, which can be really fun if executed well.
yeah. And so something behind the scenes also, but if you remember in the first Paranormasight game, there was this secret true end that, like, it was kind of tricky to find, but eventually, like, once you knew sort of where to look, like, okay, I can see like how easily the people could overlook this, but it's still manageable to find it. True end in Mermaid's Curse. Oh, you'll either understand what it's trying to ask of you sort of relatively quickly in a few hours, or you might be stupid like me and take many hours to get there. The triggers you need to get on that is uh, way more involved than Honjo in this one. This is it's yeah, it's crazy. But
Well,
there are other
you say it took you a few hours, but there were other people that had access that were like, "Josh, help! I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what do
yeah
I like?" I couldn't figure it out at all. But yeah, so it
yeah
definitely seems
yes
very well hidden.
yeah um and like everything is sort of like a natural evolution to Honjo in terms of like just presentation and gameplay. Like I said, it's more involved in the puzzle solving aspect, but also just like the general visuals. Because you have a lot more daytime scenes, that is it's a more distinct setting compared, like a tropical setting compared to the urban setting of Honjo, and everything is like much brighter overall. Like the backgrounds really do pop out because you're in this like island region. So if you remember the first game, like they had this unique like visual style of touching up like real life photographs that were taken on location with like a 360-degree panoramic camera, and so forth. And it really does shine here. Like there are some interiors in this game that like kind of left me awed at first. I'm like, holy crap, because this is still set in the 80s, so they're still recreating this region as if it were in the 80s. And that really, it's comfortable in that respect. Like, man, this is really cool how they recreated this time period in this region. And since it's not like in the taking place in like in a retro television like the first game, there's a certain level of clarity that's like kind of brought out even more now, because the first one had like this sort of visual filter over it to mimic that it's being like, through this retro television lens, while this one uh, gets rid of not rid of it. It's a way lighter in that respect. There's not much of a visual filter, so everything pops out more. And of course, the character designs by the character designer Gen Kobayashi uh, is just really, really, really fantastic. Like the designs of both the main characters and the side characters in this game are all pretty distinct and pretty like cool to see. Like I really enjoyed just the overall visual identity of the cast in this regard.
And I think the art style is really, I think it's very pleasing. I don't know, like it's a unique art style that, and I've seen actually people like on social media talking about like what just that is something that kind of I think draws people to this, even if they're not usually a fan of like. Would you call, as someone who doesn't dabble in this genre a lot, like it's kind of like part visual novel, part adventure game like it's got kind of elements of both. I understand it, but it has an art style that's kind of, I think, pretty darn unique compared to others in the space that I
Yeah.
really like.
Yeah,
think
I
it's
think
cool.
I think just like the placing a genre labels, like it'll differ from person to person depending on like what constitutes as an adventure game and visual novel to them. Like to me,
Yeah.
I see the Paranormasight series more as an adventure game because there's not really much like narration, I guess, because in visual novels there's a certain level of like narration over it, and the way that like you engage with it is way more interactive relative to a visual novel. Not to say that there are definitely visual novels that do have like a gameplay aspect, like Baldur's Sky, Little Busters, etc., etc. That do have like a gameplay aspect to it. Even like Utaware Rumono, for example. Like some people will say like that's a visual novel, but has like a strategy RPG battle element to break up those visual novel elements. Well, I think like the Paranormasight games are there is more interactivity because you most of that game is like you're inhabiting like a main character and you're looking around the environment and constantly engaging in like conversations with people. It's more akin to Famicom Detective Club in that respect, with how you the flow of the game and how you interact with characters. And I wouldn't say Famicom Detective Club is a visual novel. I consider those adventure games.
I can see that. Yeah, I don't play many of these, so for me, it's kind of like it's a Paranormasight like. Sorry that you had to hear that.
No, you're good. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
but there are like considerable like gameplay elements in the Mermaid's Curse compared to Honjo. Like for example, the main thing that they didn't
The whole diving thing, right?
yeah, they're promoting this diving mini game in this game. Where it is like a pretty relatively significant part of the game in terms of like um what you do in it. Like you are moving around this like small area in the water and you're collecting shells, lobsters, urchins before this oxygen meter depletes, and you're giving it like experience points based on how like what you find and how much you find. And as you level up your diver rank, you can level up your diving or swimming or gathering or searching skills. Um, and that will make you a better diver. And there's merit to leveling these up because there's like like the Mockingbird collectibles, like the sticker collectibles for the first game. Some of them are in this underwater section. There are other elements underwater, like in this diving mini game that matter for the overall bigger story and whatnot. So like it's a relatively simple mini game, but it's harmless. Like it was like a fun activity. I think a good chunk of Paranormasight Mermaid's Curse players already. You this mini game is introduced to you like 3 to 5 minutes after you press new game, and you can, if you really want to, you can spend like another 20 to 30 minutes there just repeatedly diving and leveling up and leveling up your stats and continuing to dive and dive and dive again to you know level up your stats. And some people are just like a lot of my friends more often than not, because they just maxed out all the stats before even proceeding through the game. I'm like, you need to calm down. It's only you've only barely started the game. They're like, no, I
Like,
must make the number higher.
I must fill the bar and be god tier diver before I engage.
Yeah, so, I must get a bigger number. I'm like, all right, well, all right. So people
How we
give
play
me,
these games.
yeah, people give me that, send me their screenshots of like the maxed out stats. Like I can now start the game. I'm like, okay, I'm happy for you. But yeah,
So obviously,
it's
you
great.
wrote up your formal thoughts on Paranormasight in the review up on the site. And Mikhail, you also did a little bit of a platform comparison. Any like key takeaways there? Because it's available on PC, mobile, and Switch.
The main thing is the Switch One version actually has performance issues, which is, I guess, not unexpected. It's a Unity game, but yeah, like when you go diving, it's like hitching constantly on Switch One.
Sucks. Ah,
Yeah, but if you play it on Switch 2, it's like perfect 60 FPS. And because I have like everyone at home uses an iPhone, and like a lot of my family members have like really old devices also. I'll like may as well just see like how it runs on like one of the oldest devices I have, which is like 6 or 7 years ago. And it is 30 FPS there, like not a big deal for a game like this, but it was just notable, so I mentioned that. And this is a game which I played the first one using touch controls exclusively on Switch, and this one I was like, now that it's launching everywhere and I have a chance to do this comparison, let me just see how it is everywhere. So yeah, I covered for people who like, I know people who enjoy playing these games only with a mouse on their PC. I know people who play this like portably and stuff, so I have everything covered. Not really a game you'd expect like major differences between platforms, but it's good to have one of these things for people, because I already had like people say that thank you for testing the iOS version. No one really covers that, so yeah, that was good to have.
Is it does it actually have a Switch 2 version, or is it just Switch 1 on
No,
Switch
no, no.
2?
It's back compatibility. So it's Switch One on Switch Two. It does look fine
Okay.
there. Like it's not like blurry like how
It's
some older
yeah.
games are. But yeah,
I was wondering because it's like the upscaling, like I wonder if it's one of those cases that I guess at first it was like on accident, but there was like some Switch One games. If you play them in back and path, they were already kind of outputting at 1080p in handheld mode. Were you able to like pixel peep and see if it looked like it was doing that?
the thing is, the game has so much post processing enabled, it's hard to do that. And the problem is, you can't get handheld capture out of these devices anyway without compression. And Switch One
Yeah.
games will just be 720p when you capture, even if it is outputting at 1080p,
Yeah,
because
yeah. It's
uh,
I
unless
remember
it's
like
like that Pokemon Scarlet Violet stuff, like those kinds of updates which are like essentially native in everything but name. But yeah, like there's too much post processing. I was happy with how it looked in the end. Like I had it on my Steam Deck OLED. I had it on the ROG Ally next to me, and I was like, the touch controls are better on Switch too. Like the on PC, it doesn't like recognize it exactly the same way. On Switch, what happens is it literally becomes like the iOS version, where you can use like double touch to drag and stuff like that. So I was like, if I want to play this with touch, and I want like being able to like put it on TV and play it with a controller, this is the way to go. So
Hmm.
that's what I said about that. And I don't have any Android device, so I didn't bother like even mentioning that. I just have like multiple iOS devices, so I tested over there. And yeah, like Paranormasight, I want to get back to it and actually finish it instead of like playing the first 2 hours or whatever, like 8 times. I don't even remember. I've lost track of that. But yeah, so I did that.
Thank you, Josh, for leading the discussion on Paranormasight, the Mermaid's Curse. The review for that is up on the site, rpgsite.net, as well as Mikhail's performance comparison. The second game we have earmarked to talk about today is a game that we've talked about in the podcast in a few different contexts. This is the worldwide release of Ys 10 Proud Nordics. Now, this game we have talked about in a few different contexts because it was announced shortly after the English. I hope I get my timeline release. Proud Nordics was announced very shortly after the original English release of Ys 10 Nordics. It was just the most unfortunate timing on like the end of NIS America and English fans that there could possibly be. I know we've covered Ys 10 Nordics both in terms of like import impressions, the Western release, and then impressions of Proud Nordics and release in Japan. And Adam, you had the task of covering Proud Nordics now that it's available in English worldwide. So since we've talked about like what Ys 10 Nordics is, this is kind of just going to be like, all right, here's our final opportunity to talk about what Proud Nordics is, what it isn't, your thoughts on it. You've obviously, of course, covered the original English release for Nordics as well. So Proud Nordics, kind of tee us up on what this game is. People who have played the original, should they play this? People who haven't played the original, what, depending on their thoughts on why they avoided it in the first place, is this the time to jump in? There's a lot of things that you can go into here.
Yeah, so Proud Nordics is an awkward re-release, made even more awkward with the pricing discount announcements that NIS America made like yesterday when the game launched on Steam anyway, which we'll get into. So, the way I approached, so I didn't write like a scored review for this because it was like barely more than a year ago, like 15 months ago that I wrote the original like review of the game. That it's a full review. I touch on everything I really like about the game and things I don't like about the game. And Proud Nordics doesn't like fundamentally change anything, right? It adds a few bits of content. It does make a few like mechanic tweaks here and there. There's a bit more end game material, but like it's the same game. It is a re-release with just like some small additions.
Yeah. Like the biggest changes it makes is that it overhauls the skill system so that you can have skills level multiple times. It adds in these levels for your tools, and then there's the new island. And because the new island exists, they've slightly changed the leveling curve in the latter half of the game to accommodate that. And that's pretty much the major systemic changes.
Yeah, so and I know I'm almost positive James talked about this when he did the original Switch 2 release in Japan last summer. But this is the one part about. So, anyways, my review addendum that I did for Proud Nordics is a bit more like clerical. It's a bit more. Here's what's new. Here are the new things, and like just kind of laying it out. Like my opinions of the game are mostly the same. I really do like the new island. I'll touch on that in a second. But it's then my new update review for this, not a scored review. It's just kind of like an outlining. Like here's what's new. Here's what you're getting. The one thing, this might feel kind of small, but this is the one thing I was not expecting and was actually the thing that I felt was a relatively tangible like difference in game feel comparing the original release and Proud Nordics, excuse me. James mentioned briefly, you can upgrade your mana actions. So you can upgrade like when you do your mana, I think it's called mana burst attack in like combat, it can do more damage and it can cause more of like the burning or freezing status, which is kind of like, okay, that's cool. It just does more. You can upgrade your like mana lasso or rope. So when you pull on enemies, it can do like more damage. And it's like, okay, I guess that's cool. Now the one that is actually, I feel like the biggest like actual tangible like feel and difference in feel is you can upgrade the mana ride, which is your little Gullen board, to go faster. And by the time you've upgraded that 3 or 4 or 5 times, it goes way faster. I actually loaded up the original East 10 Nordics to compare, and I'm like, wow, this thing is sluggish as heck. When you get on your little mana board in that game, in the new game, you're later in the game, like when you're going through for example, the final dungeon in the game, which is kind of a long, winding, mountainous path, you can zip right through that with the upgraded speed on the mana board. So I know that may sound kind of small, but in terms of like actually like the feel of playing the game, not talking about content, not talking about like mechanics, that's like the biggest difference I felt was the mana board is way faster. And also you can like press a button.
It's sailing too.
And sailing, yeah. But the mana board, you can actually press a button to actually like push off the ground like you would with the skateboard and actually like accelerate, which you really couldn't do in the original version. You kind of had to get on and off to push it. So anyways, that was actually one thing I wasn't expecting. I was like, oh, this is actually not, I didn't come into Proud Nordics knowing or expecting the mana board's going to be more fun and more useful, but it is. Now, playing through Proud Nordics, it's one of those things where, so when I did my original review last year, the things I kind of said, I'll start with the things I wasn't too much a fan of. Like, I wasn't a fan of most of the character cast. I think Karja is really good, and she kind of had to be. She's pretty much the main character of the game. But, like, the rest of the characters were kind of like, I would, like, run into them again, and I would be like, oh, yeah, this guy or this girl, like, you left absolutely no mark or impression on me because it's been barely a year and I completely forgot about you. So, you know, they're there. And so new content. Again, I know we talked about this briefly in the past. So a couple of chapters into the game, you can find a new island in the world map, and it's basically the only new island. It's called Oland Island. I might be mispronouncing it, but this is basically where all the new story content is. It's on this island. And it's a kind of structure where you go to the island, you meet 2 new characters, Canute and Astrid, and I'll talk about them in a second. But then you can kind of explore like a part of the island to start. But then you'll hit a wall or a roadblock, and it's like, well, you can't go any further until you like proceed further in the main story, and you get like a new ability or mana action or whatever, like something unlocks that you can proceed through the rest of the island. So it's the sort of thing where you come back to it 4 or 5 times throughout the game, which actually I think works, reasonably well, where it's not just something that it just kind of, it's something that you revisit and play in chunks versus, all at once. And it is not really seamlessly woven into like the main story. It's kind of its own little sub story that occurs in the island, but it's not done like all in one big chunk. It's not like an additional chapter. In fact, all the chapters in the game are the same as they were before. Like they start in the same place, they end in the same place. And that main story is not changed. It's just that between those chapters, you can go back to this Oland Island, this new island, and explore a little more or go a little further and see a little bit more there. So it's kind of a separate thing functionally in the game. Like what it actually is constructed as are side quests. You have your little quest log and they'll actually just show up in your quest log as a side quest. It's called like Oland Investigation 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and 5. So it's like a quest that you complete in stages. I don't think the actual story, like the actual narrative of what you do on this new island is really all that interesting. Basically, what it is this new character, Canute. He is a Norman of a different tribe, and he's basically there. He kind of like shows up to Karja, and there's a little bit of a backstory between them because they're like, they're not family, but they're, part of Norman tribes. And he's like, if the Balta Sea Force, which is Karja's family, if they lose, if they kind of like lose their grip on this region of the ocean, Obelia Bay, then my Norman tribe might have to come in and take care of things. And of course, Karja doesn't want that. And then he kind of proposes, let's play a game. Let's explore this new island, which has these rune stones that kind of will, give us insight or clarity on some of the history of the Normans and why the Normans had to flee their homeland years and generations ago. And this is one of those things they very lightly touched on in the original game, but it's just kind of like giving a little bit more insight on like the history of the Normans. And is it really all that interesting? It's fine, but there are a few kind of, I feel, intentionally vague nuggets of like Ys world building. If you're a longtime Ys head, you might find it interesting about the sort of things they touch on. And it is pretty vague. There's not like any like big revelations or anything. But like, I don't know if you remember, James, but they mentioned the
There's some really
Loto. What are they going to do with Loto? I'm curious.
Yeah,
it feels like they're going to do something with that.
Did you also catch the implication that we already know who Loto's like current incarnation is?
Yeah, I wish. So there's this. I'm getting into spoilers maybe, but yeah, they talk about this character god named Loto. But I don't want to say much more than that.
It's basically, without spoilers, it's Loki. It's Loki and how like can change their appearance, their gender, everything. And there's an implication that one of the characters that's in multiple Ys games is Loto and has been the entire time.
I didn't want to go that far into it, but sure. There's some vague implications that might involve the larger Ys world, which is like, I don't know. Are they going to do with anything with this? I don't know. But the actual story itself is just fine. The actual like narrative that you learn about the Normans is just like, okay, that was acceptable. It was okay.
I'm still pretty early in the game, but have they expanded anything with the original characters, or do they just leave it as is?
I don't. Basically,
Not really.
anything in the original about the original cast of characters is all the same.
That's kind of disappointing, but but I guess the only cast I like in the original is probably Glenn, and then maybe Sachi and Ashley, maybe?
Yeah, so I actually said this. I actually reread my original review. I forget his name, but I like the single father lighthouse keeper and his daughter. Like, that's kind of a charming little pair of NPCs. Like, he's just, all he cares about is his 4-year-old daughter and making sure she's happy, and she collects the pickers, and it's like, okay, that's fine. I like Mirabelle, who's sort of like, she has like this unfazed, personality that she just like no shows anything no matter what's going on, which is kind of amusing. And Glenn is, Glenn. But yeah, there's a lot of the characters who are just kind of like, I don't know, they didn't leave a whole lot of marks, a whole lot of impression on me. there are some new endgame modes. There is a mode in Muspelheim, which is sort of like, it's not like roguelike, but it's kind of got like a repeat roguelike run sort of structure that you go through this level and you gain points. It's like a score attack mode, and as you earn points, you can unlock, like, you can lift some of the limiters that basically make it so you can go further into your run. So again, it's not quite a roguelike, but it's got like this sort of, the more runs you do, the better your runs will get kind of feel to it. And like, that's reasonably enjoyable. There's another
Adam, I gotta ask. Were
Oh.
you like me and you completed your first run? Because I totally did that.
I didn't like get to the end on my very first try because I was just kind of wandering, and you only get like 3 minutes the first time through it. But I think I got like to the end of that little dungeon on like my second try. If you just kind of beeline towards it. And actually, there is a point to doing this because this does unlock some of that lore stuff that we talked about earlier. So there's sort of a carrot at the end of the stick, like, why should I do this? Like, not only is it just kind of reasonably fun in itself, but you do unlock a little bit of lore by doing it. And then the other end game mode is called Ceaseless Sea, which is this naval battle, endless score attack mode. And I was like, no way, I am not doing that. I think the sea battles suck. I am not doing an endless sea battle. No, thank you. I don't think any carrot on a stick would be delicious enough to do that. So I am not. But it's there if you want to. Let's see.
There's a trophy attached to it.
There is no trophy. So if you're an achievement hunter, you can
Oh,
still
but you
ignore
would.
it. Yeah. There are a few other like small, like James mentioned one of these. You can upgrade your skill power with a new consumable item called Eldling Fragment. And it basically just is another avenue to make your Karja and Adol stronger. So, I have like 4 skills on each of those characters that I ended up kind of gravitating towards. Like, okay, let me power up these skills with my fragments, and they get, actually considerably more powerful. And if you're, especially for doing that, like that score attack mode that I mentioned earlier in Muspelheim, it can be really helpful there. And of course, any other boss in the game. So, like, it's just another way that the Adol and Karja's ceiling has been raised in terms of how strong and capable they can get. And this is just the ladder that you can use to get to that ceiling. There's also, we briefly mentioned this earlier, that you can get another consumable item called like Shimmering White Sand, that is used to power up like the mana ride and the mana actions and things like that. So anyways, my favorite part about Proud Nordics really is the exploration of Oland Island. This is that new island that you kind of come back to 4 or 5 times throughout the game. And this is kind of what I felt the original East 10 was missing, in that the original East 10, most of the islands are pretty bite-sized. A lot of them are kind of samey. A lot of them you can kind of really do a loop around the island in a minute because they're pretty bite-sized, pretty small. I know there are some larger areas like the underwater temple and whatnot, but still, what I liked about Oland Island is it kind of felt like a bigger place that you actually have to explore with a couple of different, bit of variety in like the visuals and the biomes that you find on the island. It kind of felt like a miniature Isle of Saren from East 8. Definitely smaller than that. No, don't get me wrong, but like actually, like, I actually felt like I was able to explore a place. Versus in the original East 10, where I felt like a lot of the exploration was on the boat, which I just wasn't really a fan of. So I really did like just the new island, the exploration on it. I kind of liked revisiting it after every major story event. Kind of felt like an anchor in that regard. Like, oh, I can go back there and explore another part of it, or go through another section of it, fight some new enemies there. So yeah, I enjoy that island. It also has great new music for that island. So there's actually a handful of tracks that are new to Proud Nordics that I think are largely pretty good. There's also an arena.
I think the new extra final boss is pretty neat.
Oh yeah, I wasn't really well prepared for them, and I beat them on my first try, but it was pretty close. I was almost dead. It was, Karja and Adol are like sitting at 1 health, and I just kept reviving each other before they both died. Which, if you're good enough, you can do that. As long as one of them stays up, you cannot fail. But yeah, that's a pretty fun boss. So
It's also kind of funny how like one of the things I liked about like East 10 was that it's still like, even though it had like its own escalation, it was fairly grounded in terms of what Adol would have been able to do at that time of his life. And then the new final boss is kind of like, forget about that.
yeah. Like, this is Adol. If you're talking East chronology, this is like literally the first step on the path after like the original games, right? Like, Adol is
It's
like
literally
16.
a side quest before he heads to Memories of
Sassoda.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
So, like, he's like 16 years old. I mean, I guess he's beaten Darkfact and whoever the boss of East 2 is. I forget his name. But still. Yeah, so it's just now. I don't know if there's anything else we want to say about the game itself, but like the release situation that this game got a re-release to begin with. It's like, let's not do this again. Let's just. It is, I do think, a better version of East 10. Just like, on its face, I think it makes some improvements. I think I think the additions are worth it, or maybe not worth it, but I think they do make it better. But it's just like, did we need another release for this game? I don't know. Not really.
I mean, I'll say the same thing I always say, is that this isn't even new for East. Like, Ease 8, everyone loves Ease 8, and like, how many people even know that the Vita version was the original version? Like, so much of what they loved about Ease 8 was added in the PS4 version. So,
I played the Vita version. I thought the Vita version was good as by itself, but the PS4 version makes it a lot better. So
yeah, I would say that Proud Nordics isn't as much of an upgrade as like the PS4 version of Ease 8 was to that game. Like, I'm glad
you needed the most.
Yeah, that's the real thing, is that if they were gonna do a re-release of an old East game that really deserved an upgrade, it should have been East 9. Oh my god.
So obviously, Adam put up his kind of, like he said, a review addendum up on the site. So an opinion piece. Proud Nordics brings out the best of East 10, and Adam kind of goes through all the context that we just covered in this podcast. On the topic of Proud Nordics, since this is probably our last real opportunity to speak to it at true length, Mikhail, you did have a handful of features up on the site covering a couple different aspects of this game. You did a little bit of the performance review, talking about its Switch 2 in the West compared to its Japanese release, but also you had a chance to talk to PH3 with Proud Nordics and the recently released Trails Beyond the Horizon, and their work on both games for the Western release.
Yeah, so before getting to the interview, I was originally planning on doing a comparison which has everything like the original East End Nordics and Proud Nordics, and doing every platform. But as of this recording, which is on the 21st of February, the PS5 version needs a patch because the 120 FPS mode does not work right now in the West. This applies to both the PS5 and the PS5 Pro versions. It just does not work. So I'm not gonna do it like a big comparison and have to update it like in a week or whatever. So I just decided to wait on that. Beyond that, what is notable about this release specifically is that both James and I spoke about the Switch 2 port last year and how it was this massive upgrade over the Switch 1 version. Because the Switch 1 version of East End Nordics was like 600p 30 FPS approximately or something like that, and 900p 30 FPS docked. Uh, Proud Nordics by default has a 60 FPS mode, and it also offers a 120 FPS mode. So like with better visuals than the Switch 1 version. So you already have like one of the biggest jumps from Switch 1 to Switch 2. But the problem is the 120 FPS mode was kind of soft. Like, it obviously had to cut back on the resolution. What they did for the English release, PH3 Durante actually helped implement DLSS, which is new for this release. So only in the Western version so far, it has DLSS in both the 60 FPS and 120 FPS modes, and it looks so much nicer than the Japanese release, like image quality wise. So we don't really see these things happen anymore, where you have like, first of all, we don't really see delayed releases that much anymore. But to have a Western release improve like visually quite a bit over the Japanese release, I thought was notable enough. So I did a dedicated article on that, just covering showing comparisons for how like the Japanese release and the English release, how much better this one is. The other thing I did was just a PC port thing, which obviously, like, when I wrote about Trails Beyond the Horizon and when we did the podcast, I said the two best ports of 2026 are likely going to be Trails Beyond the Horizon and Proud Nordics from PH3. And I'm pretty sure there's nothing which comes out this year which is going to come close to these in terms of features and optimization. So, yeah, the port is fantastic. There is one. Notable thing which was added is that the original East End did not have any upscaling at all, but Proud Nordics does. So Durante added not only like XeSS, but like it literally ships with DLSS 4.5 already. It's one of the few games which does that, and he already implemented it in Beyond the Horizon. So like East Proud Nordics has 3, 4, and 4.5 DLSS like from the get go.
Does he have like
The
an
one
auto toggle
what
to switch the preset depending on like what the internal rendering resolution is? Because from what I understand, like NVIDIA's own recommendations is if you're using like quality level upscaling, you should stick to 4.0.
I think it's just the you can just choose the upscaling method, and I think it automatically does the resolution. I wasn't able to test the DLSS myself because I don't have any NVIDIA hardware except a Switch 2. But yeah, it does have 3, 4, and 4.5. Uh, the the one quote unquote downgrade from this port from East End Nordics is Proud Nordics, as of this writing, does not, or as of this recording I should say, does not have the co-op mode which Durante implements in his Ease PC ports. And he hasn't posted a Steam blog post yet, so I'll leave it to him to explain the reasoning for why Proud Nordics on PC does not have co-op, because East End had co-op. uh, but yeah, like now we can get to the interview because this leads into that. So because PH3 was handling Beyond the Horizon and East End Proud Nordics like a month apart, Durante didn't have time to do the interview before Trails, so I thought we'd do it in between both, and that's exactly what happened. So he had time to answer a lot of my questions in depth. Like usually, usually what happens in these interviews is I get told you can send over like 10 or 12 questions to whoever I'm interviewing, and they get back to me over email. When people don't give me a limit to questions, I'll just go wild. So I sent Durante like 35 questions and he answered everything. Like amazing stuff.
Are they
Uh,
all in the interview? Like all in the
Yes,
site? Wow.
everything is on the interview. It's a very long interview, covering both games, covering the state of PC ports right now, covering his thoughts with like stuff like Elden Ring, Night Rain. Because every time I talk to him, we like discuss how FromSoft's PC ports are kind of dog shit. I also picked his brain about Trails in the Sky first chapter's PC port, which he hasn't played, but he's heard and read a lot about it. And I was talking to him about how it's a great PC port compared to like other RPGs, but not even close to the PH3 ports. And then it was like usually when you talk to Durante, it's PC focused, but this time there was a lot of console stuff because not only did he work on the DLSS part for Proud Nordics on Switch 2, he helped them implement PSSR and do PS5 Pro support for Proud Nordics, which was also again only in his thing, I believe. And he did the Trails Beyond the Horizon, like PH3 did the Trails Beyond the Horizon Switch 1 port. And he went into detail about how that port took so much effort that it cost them money in the end because of how many man hours they needed to do, and how uh, he never wants to do another PS5 to Switch 1 conversion ever again because of how much time and effort went into it. And I think anyone who's played the demo can see the results because like despite Trails Beyond the Horizon, like he told me it was built for PS5 based on what he's played, and like obviously he's handled the code now, and it was like down ported compared to how like Daybreak 1 and 2 were basically PS4 games which were also ported to Switch 1. And despite that, the his Horizon port is like way better than the Daybreak 1 and 2 Falcom ports on Switch 1. Like Daybreak 2, just looking at it now, I don't even know how I managed playing like 20 hours of it or whatever when I did. It's like awful. So yeah, like this obviously has a lot of compromises, but it still is like a very playable version. So I got to talk to him about that, talk to him about his thoughts on Switch 2's DLSS capability. what to expect from PH3 this year. He said there's a surprising port which no one really expects to, but he doesn't want to spoil the surprise. So he said stay tuned for that. And yeah, like I always ask, like I think this is the fifth time I've interviewed Durante, and I always ask him about coffee, and he always says I do not drink and will never drink coffee. So I make an exception and discuss tea with him. So I did that for this interview, and he was like really nice enough, and he said that because I don't drink coffee and you can't use a coffee photo over there, I'm going to take a tea photo for you. And that's like the best thing ever I could imagine for one of these interviews. So he put his tea collection in a kettle and he sent me a photo to use in the interview, which is amazing. So yeah,
He's one of
long
us.
interview.
I didn't catch that. That's
Yeah.
neat. But
Yeah, so
Mikhail,
that
you covered-
was a long interview with him. I hope PH3 does more stuff this year so I can talk to him again. I probably will, like, because I believe since it was either Reverie or something like that, I've interviewed him for every single Falcom release, like without fail now. So hoping to keep that tradition up, and we'll see what happens with PH3 this year. But I'm curious to see what else they do on the console side, because this was his first like actual Switch 2 dev kit thing. And oh yeah, one more thing he also spoke about is how they have like tools ready now to like export builds to NIS America on a daily basis per platform and per storefront to like save everyone time. So that's pretty interesting, like for back end stuff. So yeah, I was very impressed with that. And yeah, you can check the interview. We cover a lot about how much effort and how he decides to implement features like minimap anti-aliasing, which is something which most people don't even know exist in like some of PH3's ports. Like I call them niche features, which maybe only he, I, and 5 other people care about. So he talks about how they implemented portrait not upsampling, portrait. Basically, you downsample portrait so your quality is better in the UI, and talking about how he spends time to make sure that the UI in his games and all the 2D assets scale properly on low res devices like Steam Deck, because everyone just builds them for 1080 and above. When you play them on Steam Deck, there's like some rendering issues sometimes and stuff like that. So a lot of into the weed stuff of how these ports happen and like whatever, and what he's been playing, what he likes, his handles and stuff. So I recommend reading it if you care about Falcom or PC ports in general, or even Switch 2 actually now, because he does that.
Yeah, thank you, Adam and Mikhail, for very thoroughly covering the release of Proud Nordics. Finally in the West, and of course, Mikhail kind of extending that to the recent release of Beyond the Horizon, tying that back into Trail's first chapter last year, Trail's second chapter this year, and then whatever's going to follow up from Horizon, of course. Those that are now caught up with Japan. Finally, me holding my hand up in the air, being in that position for the first time, is a bit of a strange feeling. So,
especially
I'm sure it'll be
considering
fun.
like Kyoto Xanadu, like as of right now, it's supposed to be a day and date release worldwide. It's like it might like Proud Nordics might have been the last Falcom game to release staggered like this.
Now, the last thing to mention about Proud Nordics, that I don't know if there's really a whole lot to say about it, other than that, like, this is kind of scummy, is that
Oh, yeah.
NIS America announced that if you own the Steam version of East 10 Nordics, the original version, or the English version on Steam, and if you own that, you can get Proud Nordics at like a 34% discount starting on March 6th. So that's like 2 weeks from now. And Mikhail pointed out that like, the early purchase like bonuses that you can get for like buying East 10 Proud Nordics at launch, which gave you like items and cosmetics and some what other stuff, I don't know. It's like that goes until March 5th. So you have to make a decision. Do you want the early purchase if you own the original version? Do you want to get the early purchase bonus for Proud Nordics, or do you want to get the discount? You can't get both. And it's there. I've seen some speculation about like why would that be the case? Is this NIS America's like decision? Was this Falcom's decision? Probably some combination of things. Mikhail, what do you think about this?
So there's quite a few things to cover here. The first is, I initially thought this might just be a PC thing, but when I last checked, the GOG page had no mention about this. So the discount might just be literally on Steam and nowhere else. The second thing is they announced it, like I've been refreshing the page every few hours, like on launch day, because I needed to update my DLC guide, which I'll also talk about. There is some stuff to talk about there, but I think doing just the 34% discount is bizarre on its own, because it's not like Proud Nordics is cheap. It's a 70 USD
Yes.
game. So you getting 34% off is like, I don't know what that's really saving you. The other thing is, there's a possibility this was decided last minute, and because they already had the bundles on Steam configured for their launch sale, and like you have to like set these things up in advance. So there's a possibility that they could not change the bundles because they were all set and ready for the launch period, that they had to do this later. I feel like having it this way is doing more damage than good. Like, even not doing a discount would have, people who wanted it would have like just picked it up. People who didn't want it wouldn't have picked it up. I'm like, just tell me one thing now. You played East End. Now, if you didn't get a review code for Proud Nordics, would you buy it at 34% off?
No, I would probably just wait. Like, if I didn't get a review code, I'd probably just like, I'll pick it up in like literally years down the road in a Steam sale or something, right? So
I didn't get a
Yeah,
review
I'm just
code. I didn't play the original East 10 Nordics, and because of all everything that's happening surrounding this, I won't get it till it's like at least 50% off, if not more. I'm not in any rush to
yeah.
go out and buy and support and play this game with the way that they're handling it.
And I think
Even beyond this, even them like doing the whole releasing the original game and 2 weeks after doing the Proud Nordics announcement, like like that's unfortunate timing, of course, on like Falcom and the with Falcom's announcement and Nisa's release, but because of everything that's gone down, I'm like, I don't need to play this game anytime soon, and I'm not in any rush to do it, so I'd rather save money.
yeah. So there's like the bad discount, the last minute discount announcement. Only having it on one storefront on PC, like NIS America sells their Falcom games on GOG, Epic, and Steam, while the Gung Ho Trails in the Sky first chapter was just on Steam. So, and second chapter also. So like you're screwing out. Obviously, like we joke about Epic Games or whatever, but still you're screwing out 2 out of 3 storefronts on PC, both console platforms. Uh, and on top of all of that, you give a 34% discount, you do whatever. This re-release with new content still ships with like $90 more of DLC, like paid DLC. So if you buy this, the 34% off, you buy the physical copy on PS5, or you buy the game keycard on Switch 2, or you buy the standard edition, you still have like $89-$99 of DLC available on the eShop and PSN and Steam to upgrade. Because while NIS America has been saying this new release includes DLC from the original game, it only includes the cosmetic DLC and accessories. It does not include the items. And I've always thought the items in Falcom games are kind of dumb, because if you want cheat items, just play the game on easy. Like, what's the point of like whatever? But yeah, there is like a deluxe edition and there's an ultimate edition with lots of item packs and stuff. So even if you bought like the $150 or $120 edition for East End 2 years ago, you're going to need to spend $150 more to get quote unquote everything now. So it's not a great situation. It's not great how they've handled this. They didn't announce any of the editions and bundles beforehand, so people didn't even realize what's happening with this. It just all went up like an hour before on Steam. Nothing revealed on the eShop, nothing revealed on PSN until launch day. So I just think this is like a really poor way of handling it, when at least by all accounts, Ys 8 is like their best selling game in the West.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just messy in general, not happy with it. Uh, as someone who owns, like, I think the last time I counted, I had like, counting digital copies, I have like 11 versions of Ys 8. I've still not bought a single physical copy of Ys 10 except for the Japanese one, which I like got for the bag, which I think James also has, that sling bag which they released over there. Yeah, I haven't bought like any Western release or anything yet. So like I'm just annoyed with how it's being handled. Like Josh said, like it does not feel like something worth supporting. And like I'm just really, really disappointed in how they're handling it. Like just they could easily offer discounted upgrades on the eShop. It's either NIS didn't want to do it or Falcom didn't want to do it. Games have done this stuff before on the eShop. So, and on PSN also, like I like literally I got Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition for free after getting the Royal Edition on like a major discount a few months ago. So yeah, like they could have done this, they didn't do it.
So if you go to rpgsite.net and you see Proud Nordics, or if you click on the articles tab, I'm trying to figure out like and you click on the East 10 Nordics, because I guess it's all under the same entity. You'll see all the features that have went up in the last, let's see, it looks like 5 things went up on February 16th. So we have covered this game very extensively up on the site. So thank you, Mikhail and Adam, for all the work that you've done over the last week to wrap up all the discussion on both Proud Nordics, as well as, of course, for putting a bow on Beyond the Horizon. And I don't know, this wasn't planned, but you two also kind of ended up tag teaming another like February release. Maybe a little bit less to discuss here, but just a couple days ago, Avowed released on PlayStation 5 for the first time, previously being PC and Xbox, of course, underneath Microsoft umbrella there. More to discuss on that later. But Adam, you got some interview answers back for the Avowed kind of 2.0 quote unquote release. And then, Mikhail, you were able to kind of cover the PS5 version of the game. So maybe we'll start with Adam and go to Mikhail. And this would probably be a little bit of just a quick touch in here about what you're able to get for the Avowed interview, talking about the anniversary update, and then just the PS5 version in general.
Me first? Yeah, so basically Microsoft and Obsidian reached out and like, hey, we're releasing the PS5 version of Avowed, and that kind of comes alongside the update for all versions, which is adding a handful of things like New Game Plus, and a new race and things like that. And so we get a chance to ask some questions about, like, the PS5 version, basically 1 year in, what the reflections on the game and whatnot. And there's some interesting answers that the gameplay director Gabe Paramo gave about the game. Like, for example, one thing I asked him, was there any feedback to Avowed that came as a surprise? Now, I haven't played Avowed, so Brian, maybe you can chime in about his answer here. But his answer about like feedback that surprised him, he said, we were definitely surprised at how many people bounced off the upgrading experience. We were trying to create a tight gameplay loop where the player completes content, upgrades gear, then faces harder content. But because the game's open area, players wanted to explore and were getting stopped in the tracks in ways we didn't anticipate. They'd push into new areas and hit a wall, not because of enemy difficulty, but because the upgrade system wasn't keeping pace with their curiosity to explore. So, like, I find that kind of interesting. Just from like a game design perspective, they were like, okay, we expect people to, kind of loop through this mechanic that we have with the upgrades and exploration, but people just wanted to explore and were ignoring the upgrades, so they had to make some tweaks there to make the game
I
more
can touch on that if you
palatable.
want.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are interrelated here, because I do think it's a smartly designed game. But one of the things they changed, to my memory, pretty quickly after release, is both your items and the enemies are very clearly tiered. Like, there are tier 1 items, tier 1 enemies, tier 2 items, tier 2 enemies. And like, if you are ever behind on a gear tier, then you end up being like significantly underpowered. So like, if you go to an area and the enemies are a higher tier than your gear, you're going to have a bad time. And the game was designed in a way that if you explored very thoroughly, you would just have just enough upgrade materials to kind of keep pace. But if you like went off the beaten path in a way that wasn't intended, or you wanted to push ahead without doing that, or you wanted to explore and use different types of gear, it was very stingy in terms of like having the appropriate amount of components necessary. Like, for me, I kind of decided early on that I wanted to play with like a wand and a focus. So I wasn't as experimental. So I wasn't experimental, and I wasn't like, I was exploring all the maps very thoroughly. So I never felt behind. But like, if I got a bunch of components, I use them to upgrade my short sword or whatever. Then it's like, well, don't even bother trying to experiment with a long sword, because you're never going to have enough components to make that gear strong enough to keep pace like that. And so my understanding is, and of course I played it pre-release, is that one of the very first things they changed was adding more upgrade materials, like making them more readily available. So you didn't feel like well, gee whiz, I used up all my upgrade materials on one weapon that now I'm stuck with because if I go to any other weapon, I'm going to be behind. So to me, like hearing that feedback, like to me, it's just like obviously I didn't hear the answer that he gave or see the answer that he gave, but like to me, it kind of makes sense. Like, okay, people want to experiment, people want to try different things, and I thought they course corrected relatively quickly in terms of allowing more components to be found in the game.
Another answer. He was
That's my take
also
on it.
yeah. Gabe was also kind of open. He gave some pretty candid answers that I appreciate. Like one, uh, this is actually a suggestion from Josh too, the other Josh, about why should people pick up Avowed now, like with the update, if they maybe weren't feeling it to begin with. And he basically said, or not basically, he did say, I want to be upfront. If you didn't enjoy the core pacing of Avowed, like the flow between conversations, exploration, and combat, then nothing about that has fundamentally changed, etc., etc. So, he's not trying to like put on a show or whatever, like, oh yeah, it's way better now, or like it's try it, and blah blah blah. He's just like, it's kind of reining expectations a little bit about what the update did and allowed, but what it couldn't change. Another answer that he gave was actually a question from Hayes that he suggested about how does it, like, one of the new updates was a new race in the game that you could play as, and what did that, like, how did that get incorporated into the game? And he mentions, like, from a gameplay and like character artist perspective, it took a lot of work to get those customizations to work properly, as well as all the interactions in the game in terms of like camera angles to like work with the new race, because I guess they're like shorter maybe. But then he does mention, kind of admittedly, on the writing side, because our post-launch team was primarily made up of people focused on the PlayStation 5 port and gameplay, without dedicated narrative people, we weren't able to have like unique dialogue choices based on race. And I kind of found that kind of a refreshing answer too. It's almost like an insight in how these sorts of like updates and ports work. Like all the narrative people, they're not working on Avowed anymore. They're working on other stuff, presumably. So they weren't available to, if they have new races, to have new dialogue, because they just literally weren't working on Avowed. So I find that, kind of refreshing. Just, getting that clarity on how these things are sort of approached in some way.
How to level load like resourcing. Like we have this team and these talents available, but not that team. So we're able to do this, but not that. It's a level of candor. I do like hearing that. And then Mikhail, just a very, very quick touch in that you were able to play a little bit of the PS5 version and compare across the existing versions. Just main takeaways.
So I wasn't able to compare because I didn't have the anniversary update on Xbox or PC yet. I just had the PS5 version, which ships with the anniversary update at 2.00. So I tried out the new races. I think I tried everything except New Game Plus and the new quarter stuff, because one is I didn't have time to finish the whole game in whatever the week I think I had with it. And the rest, I just wanted to see how it feels. It still feels like Avowed. They didn't do anything special with the DualSense controller, which was probably my only disappointment from this, because I liked what I played of Avowed last year. It just feels like they've tuned it up, tweaked things. The world is still the same. Like, people did not like that the world was static. Like, if you kill enemies, most of them just remain dead. Like, at that time, now some of them respawn, but it's still the same static world. So, like Adam mentioned from the interview, he reined in expectations and said, if you like, this is not some huge overhaul or anything like that. It's kind of like an enhancement or improving what I thought they did well before. So still the same game, console version, at least on PS5, except for the DualSense stuff. I'm happy with how it is. He did say in the interview that they've optimized it and like they've got it playing on handhelds and stuff. I tried it before and after the anniversary update. This dog shit on Steam Deck. Like literally in the first opening area, it dropped to like 20 FPS multiple times, and I think I was rendering the game at like 360p or something. So yeah, like thank you Valve for the quote unquote green check mark. So yeah, worthless verification there. But yeah, otherwise, the only one takeaway besides the controller stuff is I was hoping it got a physical release now, because they didn't do one last year. They did this weird steelbook with a code which has the premium edition but not a physical release. So I think the ship has probably sailed on that front. But yeah, like Avowed is now on PS5. So if you were waiting for it, it's good now on PS5.
Yeah, and one interesting thing you mentioned is, they did mention that in the base game that enemies don't really respawn, which I actually kind of liked, and I read some impressions that a lot of people actually do kind of like that. And I saw when certain enemy groups will respawn now, I saw some people saying like, really, I like that they didn't. Like when you cleared out an area, you knew it was safe to travel through. So it does. It's trade-offs. It does make the world feel static in some ways, but also kind of feels like, what's the classic go-to? For me, it's like Far Cry 2, where you kill an enemy, and then you look the other way, and then they respawn. You're like, I thought I dealt with you. Trying to find the balance between, you can't please everyone.
Yeah,
But
and it's not all the enemies, it's just a few of them that they've
certain
said. So I don't like it's not gonna really fix the static world. It's still gonna be the same thing. So yeah. And just one last thing to bring up is what our boss Alex Donaldson posted on Blue Sky when they announced the Avowed PS5 release date. He said if I were Xbox, I would definitely decouple significant updates to games from the late multiplat releases, as dropping a load of improvements the same day as PlayStation release really fuels that Xbox players beta tested for PS users narrative. Let
Yep.
Xbox players have the update first, LOL. And I'm just like in responses to that, and like some of the quotes, there's like suggestions it might happen with Starfield, and I don't even know what to think about the quote unquote discourse if that comes true. So
Yeah, we'll see on, what comes out of that. But yeah, we kind of talked about that when they announced that was coupled together. Both the 2.0 release, which was already announced as part of the roadmap, being coupled with the PS5 release was a little bit like, kind of a weird vibe. But yeah. Before we get into news, just a few more article shout outs out on the site from some other contributors. We talked about Hayes. You mentioned him in passing. He's been on the podcast before. He wrote an op-ed for us for the site for the upcoming People of Note. This was the Annapurna Interactive, like musical themed RPG. It was announced at TGS last year. James actually had a chance to. I forget if you went hands on. Yeah, you did play
Yes,
it
I
there,
did.
and you wrote about it. October, like the month after. We got a release date of April 7th. That was just announced this week for the game. And then Hayes, alongside the release date announcement, was able to put an additional preview about this game, its inspirations, his thoughts on it. So was that Hayes' first article on the site, Adam? Like, I think that
Yeah,
was his debut.
as a
So,
contributor,
Eden
yes.
Zero.
real,
Well, as a contributor, yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I was gonna say, I know he
Mhm.
did something freelance for us first.
so But yeah, this is like one of those games that I think it's releasing at a good time, in kind of that early April window before some of the, we've already talked about last week, a few games starting to dot the June, July, August, release calendar. So I think People of Note landing in early April is a good spot for it. And it has a lot of kind of clear like Final Fantasy inspirations, but it's remixed in a new way. And Hayes and James from last year were both pretty positive on it. So that's a game we're definitely got kind of looking out for in about I'd say really in a month and a half or so. And then, Michaela, you had a very quick feature here for another console port, No Sleep for Kaname Date, releasing on PlayStation 5 and Xbox. Previously, it was Switch and PC.
Just one thing to comment on over there. There's one thing I missed last year when I wrote about it. All versions of the game, including the PC version, have this annoying Unity scrolling issue, which Digital Foundry has covered. It was in the Monkey Ball Switch exclusive, which came out a few years ago, and I didn't
They
pick up
fixed
on
it
it
there.
last year. Yeah, they fixed it there. Kaname Date has that issue on every platform right now. So yeah, like that's annoying. I've emailed Spike Chunsoft. I doubt anything's getting fixed with that game, but yeah, that was something I didn't pick up when I first tested it because I wasn't like 100% certain on this Unity thing. But yeah, that was the main takeaway from it. Like it's a game which is on Switch, so when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox, it's just gonna run fine. But yeah, there's an issue on everything still. So yeah, we can.
And I think that covers it for our. I hope I sometimes I accidentally skip stuff here, but I think that covers everything I have listed for our RPGsite.net article shoutouts. So that's the Paranormasight review, Mikhail's performance comparison there, all the features for Proud Nordics, and all the features for Avowed, People of Note, and a quick look in at console ports for No Sleep for Kaname Date. So the last thing that we left off on with last week's episode of the podcast was what do we think that CyberConnect 2 might be announcing as part of their 30th anniversary project? But I'm going to hand this off to Josh because I feel like he could do this more credit than I am able to. So I'll let you take the very first headline we've got listed here.
Yeah, so there was a CyberConnect 2 30th anniversary project that they were teasing last week, and I was like, okay, I'll get up at 3 a.m. for this. I was understandably pretty pessimistic on what this was going to be because I was like, I don't know. I feel like the CyberConnect 2 has kind of moved on from .hack, and I am someone who deeply, deeply loves and grew up on .hack, truly. So when they started rolling this mysterious trailer for this 30th anniversary project, it opens up with like some shots of a city and someone in a hospital.
The
I'm like,
moment
okay,
I
it's
saw that
the
hospital
yeah.
shot, as someone that loves .hack sign, I immediately was like, "Oh my god! Oh my
I
god!"
wasn't convinced yet. You have to see it for Viper server. I became pessimistic because I've been hurt many times of .hack teases, and a lot
Yeah,
of it was like anniversary merch and so forth. So I'm someone who's like I wasn't convinced until the text "Good morning, the world." I'm like, okay, we're fucking back. We're cooking here on something. So the basically there's a whole teaser announcing .hack Z.E.R.O as Z.E.R.O separated by periods. This weird for some. This title is weird for someone who knows a lot about .hack because .hack Z.E.R.O was already a name in this in .hack as a novel. It has nothing to do with that light novel, but they wanted to emphasize that there's been a lot of like interviews concerning this announcement with from CyberConnect 2 CEO Hiroshi Matsuyama that .hack Z.E.R.O is a new reboot for .hack. Everything about .hack before this doesn't really like it's not part of the canon. It's not building off of anything. It's not building off of IMOQ. It's definitely like using that as a base foundation, but it's not like, oh, you need to know IMOQ to know what's happening in Z.E.R.O. That's not the case. I'll get into it. You don't need to know GU. You don't need to know any of the other .hack projects before this. This is a new start from scratch. Um, and against all odds, the impossible did happen. And James was right, admittedly, that this is like one of those stars aligning moments where the they were able to get special permission from Bandai Namco to use the .hack IP and name for .hack Z.E.R.O. They cannot use IMOQ, GU, or any other prior .hack projects in rolling this. They can only use like the name and the IP only for this .hack Z.E.R.O project. They wanted to be very clear about that. It's a very extremely rare deal that they were able to get with Bandai Namco because this shit never happens. This is I don't know, borderline unprecedented, honestly. But
yeah,
it was to celebrate
yeah.
CyberConnect 2's 30th anniversary, and this is because of the goodwill that CyberConnect 2 and Bandai Namco has maintained for 3 decades. You might say
Yeah,
something,
because
James?
it's like two things. One, it's interesting, like reading between the lines that if they hadn't gotten the approval, like there might have been a possibility that this would have been just like it's not .hack, but it's very clearly meant to be like a spiritual successor. And like the whole reason it took so long is that they really wanted to be like, no, we want this to be .hack. We want to get permission, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, Matsuyama mentioned in an interview this project has been secretly in the works for 10 years. And it's like, okay, that's crazy. And that's how long
They
it
were able
took
to
to get
hide it for
permission.
10 years?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's and but this is really building off of like the core concepts of IMOQ, like because in the trailer itself you see like this character that sort of resembles Kite, and then you see characters that sort of resemble Black Rose and Balmung and Aura, and I wrote an op-ed in response to this, but one of the key points I make in this op-ed is just because these characters that we see in the trailer look like them doesn't necessarily mean they'll be named Kite, Black Rose, Balmung, and Aura. Because for all we know, part of the stipulations of this special deal with Bandai Namco is that they cannot use any of like the names of previous dot hack characters, or like the obviously don't use their designs, and maybe not even their name. You can only use the dot hack name and IP, but nothing else. But we don't know that. It's so early in terms of like what we would know of this project. We just kind of know how
We
it came to
also
be
don't
broadly.
we also don't know exactly how long it's been in development, because I've seen some
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, they just now started it," and I don't think that's necessarily true.
I don't think
Like
that's
they
true.
said, yeah, they said, "Oh, we just now announced it," and it's like that's a very different thing. That's a very different thing.
Yeah, even though those projects start at like the end of the trailer, that doesn't necessarily mean that like they're starting development now. This has clearly been something that they've been working on over the years. And even Matsuyama, in an interview with a Japanese outlet, said that they don't want to keep people waiting for too long for new information on this project. That is something, and he's also teasing that like there might be some, this might be this new dot hack project might have like some cross media elements. They're like the dot hack series is fundamental to the identity of CyberConnect 2. You cannot separate CyberConnect 2 from dot hack and vice versa, because the reason like CyberConnect 2's name is fundamentally linked to dot hack. The conception of it is linked to dot hack. So yeah, I wrote up an op-ed on the site like same day because I'm insane. But here's how I see it, because there's been a lot of talk about people who wanted an IMOQ remake, which is basically a remaster or remake, which is the dot hack series before the GU series, because a lot of people know dot hack via the GU series. Before that, there was a tetralogy of dot hack games for the PS2: Infection, Mutation, Outbreak, and Quarantine. That's the era that really resonated with me, because I was one who played those games. I watched the dot hack side anime. Obviously, I watched the Liminality OVAs because they were all bundled with those games, and I was really bought into this dot hack universe, where you had different dot hack series, side, the IMOQ games, the Liminality OVs, that all took place in the same world but had different characters in them. So you had unique stories, unique perspectives, and so forth. And that's what I really, really liked about that project at the time, because there was very little like it in the realm of video games. Like even there's even like cross promo material, like for dot hack Mutation Part 2, that had characters from Side in its promo material. You had like if you were bought in, like that was crazy to you. So this is really interesting in the sense that like dot hack Z.E.R.O is a new starting point using the IMOQ concepts as a foundation. We don't know exactly how it'll change it up. Obviously, there's a lot of changes already that you see in the teaser with the white-haired girl who is meant to be the Aura equivalent. Clearly, that's not like the Aura in Z.E.R.O's teaser is very different from Aura as we know her in the IMOQ games, where Aura in those games was had like a white dress, kind of ethereal, very innocent, and very like like she was very like cooperative with you, while the Aura equivalent in Z.E.R.O's teaser is clad in black, clearly kind of looks like evil in some sense, and might be a corrupted version of her, who knows. But it's very different from our understanding of a prior character and so forth. There's obviously some very deliberate shots in that Z.E.R.O teaser that is meant to call back to like the previous dot hack games. Whether it's like that red cross weapon, clad in chains, that is very much might be hinting at Scathe from dot hack, because it's a pretty like deliberately you know like it's a very deliberate teaser, especially for um previous fans. Like there was one thing that I mentioned in my op-ed also, that there's a an interview with Famitsu that was conducted with new concept art, and there was also a Famitsu issue that came out that had like a concept art for a brand new character and so forth. But one of the concept art had like an exchange between these two, looks like detectives, in this like retro looking car, because the .hack 0, its world setting is now like the modern day today plus 10 years. So 10 years from now, from where we are, is gonna be like the main timeline for .hack 0. It's not like the early aughts that IMOQ depicted. Like I said, it's a fresh reboot, and it is CyberConnect's 2's version of like, what if we made .hack today with the technological advances that we do now, and everything that we've learned as a company up until now. So you have this exchange between these two characters, and one of them mentions is like, we're in here because so Morgana won't interfere, and it's a very small exchange, but for me, I'm like, that's a pretty big deal, because this concept art is meant to depict, CyberConnect 2's desires, and Matsuyama mentioned in an interview, of wanting to expand the real world aspect in this new entry in a way that the prior entries couldn't, because they were limited technologically, unlike what they could pump out in a game at that time, with their scope, their budget, etc. So they wanted to do something more involved in the real world in this game, and I'm like, I'm really interested in where this thing goes. I'm really happy that like this is CyberConnect 2's like biggest passion project of all time. They are giving it their all, and Matsuyama really wants to convey that. It's like, this is a big risk for us financially, because everything that we're doing is ourselves. It's the only thing we're getting from Bandai Namco is the permission to use the .hack name. We're developing this ourselves. We're promoting this ourselves. We're publishing this ourselves. Everything for this project, this .hack 0 project, we're doing it away from Bandai Namco, aside from using this .hack name. And that is, it means a lot, and it's really been heartwarming to see the entire internet, it feels like, learn of .hack, and I'm getting more interested in them in a way, like, hey, where can I like start playing these games, or what should I watch, and so forth. And it's been really cool seeing people in that community who still have a love for .hack, like, introduce people to it now in a big way. It's this announcement, like, in some ways kind of means the world to me, because I'm someone who really, 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 really loves .hack, and like the way it like presented things. It is very foundational to why I love video games the way I do today.
So obviously we have the news for the announcement on the site, as well as what Josh mentioned, his very quickly written up preview. I just took very soon after the announcement written up preview for, I don't, if just preview the right term, or just kind of like opinion piece, or just like
An op-ed, yeah. It's an opinion piece.
So
Yeah.
about .hack, and why this is exciting, and like you said,
Yeah,
why people like
the
someone like you is
the TLDR on it is, remastering IMOQ is enough, because it's not enough, because if you release that as a remaster, it's very quickly forgotten, and it's not going to it's not going to perform well at all. It's the gameplay in it hasn't aged well. Everyone who's played those games can see the complaints from a mile away. Even back then, they weren't perfect games, and they've only aged poorly over time in the way that you play and engage. Of course, that doesn't mean everyone will hate them. Some people will appreciate for what it is, but by and large, most people will not jive with it at all. And you're kind of left in that .hack GU last recode situation, where it's cool that they did this for preservation's sake, but it's .hack is no longer a thing, after this. So .hack 0, in a way, to me, is smart, because it's something to sustain .hack into the future. That's what I want to drive home, is because this is a new start. This is something that they have full ownership over. This is something to keep .hack relevant, not just for a hot second, millisecond. It's something that will have a future if it does well.
Mhm. We have a few other announcements here. We have 3 more major announcements, but they don't really, they have no real relation to each other. The first one we'll talk about here is something that I know Mikhail wanted to cover, and this is something we've been kind of hoping for a while, ever since it released last year, and we had the release of the Switch 2 last year as well. Xenoblade Chronicles Cross Definitive Edition. When's it going to get a Switch 2 edition? Well, it is now available. It's a $5 upgrade for people who bought the Definitive Edition for Switch 1. And Mikhail, you had a chance to quickly look at Xenoblade Chronicles Cross on now that it's finally available on Switch 2.
Yeah, so I was mainly playing it docked, and it's like a massive upgrade, like 60 FPS mostly across the board. But I wrote up some quick impressions a few hours later, and the one thing I did notice is I thought the texture filtering was like really, really low quality. It felt like I was playing a game at a higher resolution and frame rate, but with a lot of settings turned down or whatever. So I was a bit annoyed with that, but I got used to it when I was playing it docked. The more I played it handheld, it looked like something was weirdly wrong. Like, if you on your iPhone, if you zoom in using the camera and it does the software zoom, it has this smoothening it applies to it, and that's happening like quite a bit in handheld. It makes some of the areas look really, really bad. And I think more people are noticing that the more they play, which is like mainly a handheld issue, but also like Josh linked this Reddit post where some of the cutscenes have like flickering and all, and apparently uh, like Xenoblade X did not have like the motion vectors for like TA, which they've added in Xenoblade 3, which means like it's easier to upscale from that. But like this did not have it, so there's speculation that it's just using SMA, and it's not doing a good job of it because like the input resolution is so low. So you're getting this like sort of a wobbly, unstable image handheld, which some people can get used to. Others are like obviously not happy with it. I think it does not look that great handheld like at all. I would actually like an option to play it at 30 FPS how it was before handheld. Like I would take that over what it is right now, but I'm happy with how it is docked. So I'm happy I didn't finish the game for sure. Like now I'm going to play it at 60 FPS, but this is a weird patch, weird timing, just announced on a random like whatever Thursday or Friday whenever they did. And I'm not so fond of this like inconsistency with Switch 2 edition upgrades where some stuff is free and you get a ton, some stuff is paid and you just get like essentially like an INI edit in Unreal Engine for you're paying $10 for that, like in some games. And with Xenoblade Cross or X as I call it, it's like you don't even get like an upgrade across the board. Handheld is not as good, so it's just annoying that they're doing this. And yeah, like not happy with the handheld thing, happy with how it is docked. It's getting a new physical release in April. I'm just curious what they do for the main trilogy of games, like for 1, 2, and 3 and the DLC, if this is what they've done over here. But yeah, like Xenoblade, I put up a comparison of how it was pre-patch, post-patch, and with the upgrade, because I had a capture, like because I was working on another Xenoblade Cross article, so I had my capture ready from a few weeks ago, so that timing worked out well. I could just use that, and I had my measurements, so I patched and unpatched and the Switch 2 edition. So I got that up pretty quickly actually after the update went live. That was quite a day. So yeah, I was actually playing it before we recorded the podcast also, so I'm probably not going to play it right now, but we'll spend some time with it on Sunday and play it docked. But right now, I think if you play handheld focused, I would not buy the upgrade yet. Like wait and see.
Okay,
Yeah,
no,
it's
thank you
kind
for the
of
detailed. Go ahead,
it's
Josh.
kind of weird. Like you said, this is like a pretty much a shadow drop, and like this is something that should be celebrated more in terms of like, hey, they finally got a Switch 2 edition for Xenoblade Cross. That's like a big deal, playing it at 60 FPS. But the way that they've implemented this, like you said, it's so, I don't know, man. They should have waited on this if they had like if they had this in the works. Like this is borderline unacceptable, and asking people to pay, however much, whether it's the $5 upgrade or getting it new for like, what was it, like $65? Yeah, like
Yeah, 65. I'm confused about that as well. Like, what's the point of doing like a $65? It feels like a half-ass thing. Like, just at that point, you may as well just give it away for free or something. Like, what you? It's like the Animal Crossing upgrade. Like that. Actually, that was even worse because that you literally were just paying for like anti-aliasing and few features docked because you got the 1080p free handheld in the patch. But like, yeah, this is like you said, right? This is a very confusing thing, and like Xenoblade getting an official Switch 2 edition. Everyone's been asking for it like non-stop since, like, even I have as well. And like it's unfortunate that it released like this. And with Nintendo, you can never be sure if they're gonna patch something or not. It might just remain
Exactly.
unpatched, or it might just get patched in a year or something. Like, we don't know what's gonna happen with this. Maybe more people will make noise, but like, it took so long. It took what, Scarlet and Violet took what, 2 years for them to fix it, and the fix was buying a $450 console. So I don't know
Yeah,
what
just
they're
think
gonna
about
do
it.
here if they
Like
do
it's
anything.
like the handheld experience now for Xenoblade Cross is like some worse on Switch 2 than just like having the
Yes,
Switch 1 native game running on Switch 2.
and
Like, what are we
you
doing?
can't actually, yeah, you can't actually, like, if you've upgraded and paid, like, even if you want to, you can't remove the upgrade. You're stuck with it because it's
Oh
DLC. I
Jesus!
think the only way you can do it is if you bought a physical copy and you can eject the virtual game card or something like
Yeah,
that, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I have it digitally and physically, so because I have it digitally, I just cannot remove it ever. So I'm just going to play it docked now until a potential fix comes out for this. So yeah, it's just
that's
not great.
so bad. That's so bad.
and
Ay
and,
ay
and the other
ay.
thing is, like you said, right, inconsistent and all. Like, with Animal Crossing, the $5 upgrade gave you like mouse controls at least docked and stuff. Here you're just paying $5 for the frame rate and like image quality improvement docked, and whatever they've done handheld. There are no features in this upgrade or anything, and the load times are basically the same as before. So like, you're just paying $5 for, like, quote unquote. Like, I saw people say it's another INI edit paid upgrade. I don't think it's like that bad, like, because this does more than Animal Crossing, which was like you pay $5, it's still 30 FPS. But yeah, that paid upgrade did not make the handheld experience worse than playing on like a 8-year-old console.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Well, thank you for the look in, Mikhail, for Xenoblade Chronicles Cross Definitive Edition for Nintendo Switch 2 specifically. Yeah, fun shadow drop in concept, but it seems like in execution, hopefully something that they'll at least button back up due to the shortcomings that you've detailed here. So, and thank you, Mikhail. We know it's late for you over on the other side of the world, so have a good sleep. We'll carry on. This headline's I'm gonna start with the more exciting one. This is an announcement from Ufotable, which is I think of it as the studio behind like Demon Slayer, the Fate series animations. Obviously, a lot of the animations for the Tales series. They announced a couple things here. I'll let you take this one again, also, Josh, just because I know that you shared this in our anime
Oh
channel
yeah.
in our Discord, and um, I know you and I think Chow also.
Yeah.
Several people are excited for this for many reasons.
So yeah, you have like in an unusual fashion, a very uncharacteristic of Ufotable. They were teasing like, "Hey, we're gonna have an announcement at this like." As of the time of the recording, it was like very early this morning, before several hours before this podcast was recorded. But they announced it on their social media, and it's like they don't really do this. So people were wondering, is this like a new anime adaptation? Are they gonna announce the release date of the second Demon Slayer Infinity Castle movie? Are they gonna give us an update on their Genshin anime thing that they were teased years ago? Like, what are they doing? So the it was like a multi announcement and basically an update of like what their current projects are right now. The ones relevant to us specifically is on April 3rd. They're having some sort of anniversary collaboration with the Tales of series, since the Tales of series is um, r- celebrating their 30th anniversary, and Ufotable in some way, shape, or form is going to have something Tales of related to share uh, on April 3rd. Because it's like a 30th anniversary thing for Tales of. It's like, to me, I'm like, are they doing like a Tales of Fantasia anime adaptation? Like I think Fantasia had an anime adaptation before. It was like
It had a long
Xenoblade.
time ago. It was like an
Now,
OVA.
yeah.
but it doesn't even follow the story of the games. You'd be like kind of like lost if you were like trying to watch it.
Yeah, it was a very like it wasn't a complete thing. So like it'd be neat to see if like if Ufotable was doing like a whole complete adaptation of Fantasia. I mean, they've done it before for several Tales games. They did it for Z.E.R.O.
And
They did it for. Did
they
they do
sort of
another
did
one?
it with Sora because it's so weird. Because basically, if you watch the anime of Cesteria, halfway point it becomes like Berseria, then it goes back to Cesteria. It's
Yeah, because
very
it's like a cross promo with Berseria because they set in the same world, but then like the Berseria implementation in that Z.E.R.O. adaptation was very weird. But they did like the opening movies for like Tales of Arise also. So
And do you
they're
remember
pretty
that
intertwined.
OVA? There was an OVA too. They made like an OVA as like a prologue for Cesteria, and I think that was
Yeah,
actually like a
yeah,
better
yeah.
way to enjoy the game than playing the game.
I agree. Like whenever I tell people about Z.E.R.O., like just go watch the anime, don't play the game. This is it's the rare instance where the anime adaptation is better than the original game where it's adapting from. Yeah, like they didn't have to take much, but take it. It's a win. Um,
But
yeah,
I think it's a
the other
secret
thing,
announcement for it's an announcement of an
yeah,
announcement. So
I just want to mention
the,
that while I have the chance to, I thought the
yeah,
UFO table anime cutscenes in Tales of Arise kind of sucked, which like they were better in like some of the earlier Tales games, but the Arise anime cutscenes, I remember like people were excited, then they announced they still had them, but I thought they were actually pretty bad.
Yeah, I sort of
go for
agree.
it.
Like compared to unlimited budget works or whatever the terms were, like in terms of having such a high like bar. I felt like in Arise, on its on as a on its face, like hell yeah, Ufotable is doing the animations, and then it was like, oh, these are kind of average. They're fine. They're not bad, but they're just not up to the par.
Oh yeah,
Anyways,
they also did the scenes for Tales of Zillia, both Tales of Zillia games.
Yep.
Forgot. That's right.
Mm.
And then the other one that they had, which also we covered on the site, like this game, they released a new trailer for the Witch on the Holy Night movie adaptation that they're doing. And the big announcement that's they finally got a release window, which is this year. That project was first unveiled in like 2021, and they've been nearly radio silent on it since that announcement. I think they showed off like a new trailer either 2024 or early 2025. I forgot. Um, but then it's been a project they've been pretty tight-lipped on ever since they first announced it.
Do we
So
believe
that's
it's
finally coming
actually
out
going to launch
sometime
this
this
year?
year.
Because we've had like that new Madoka Magica movie that's had like a year announced, like however many years in a row at this point.
That movie was that new Madoka movie was supposed to come out like either this month or next month in Japan, and it got like indefinitely delayed again. So
Oh
fun,
my god.
fun.
but
Yeah.
the trailer is hype though. You get like a new like remix of Imbalance, and then you also hear like the if you play the game, you know what these scenes are. It's like
Yeah, so yeah, the I think I forgot what I think the rumored plan is they're doing the Witch on the Holy Night adaptation throughout two movies, so you can't do it all in one movie. That'd be crazy. But two movies, I can sort of see it.
oh
But yeah,
man,
that's
you're
kind
so
of the
forward
big
to it.
announcement for them. Yeah, I'm excited for it. Hopefully they do it justice. I always recommend people, if you get the chance, go read Witch on the Holy Night. You don't need to know anything else about
Should
Type
I
Moon,
read it
anything.
before I finally get around to the assuming they ever release the Tsukihime remake on PC? Like they gotta eventually, right?
I mean, you could read it
Hopefully.
without playing it. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah, you can totally go into Witch on the Holy Night without reading anything else Type Moon related and stuff
Well,
on
no,
Yeah,
no,
it's
no, no,
pretty
no. I mean,
standalone on its own.
I've read the original
Yeah.
Tsukihime, and I'm like halfway through Fate Stay Night. I should probably finish that, but I assume that because they re-released this before like Tsukihime remake, that there's like at least some sort of an expectation that I don't know.
No, you don't need to. You really don't
You don't
need
need
to.
to. It's pretty standalone on its own.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even remember like much Fate reference in the game or Tsukihime reference in it. Actually, like there's not a lot. There is some, but not a lot.
It is pretty interesting when you look at the timeline, because when they first announced the Witch on the Holy Night movie, when they first announced it and teased it, like that was a time before the localization, before we knew it was getting a re-release in Japan. I think that was maybe coincided with that release, and then it was before the localization overseas. So that was a time when they announced that like a lot of the overseas audience was really unfamiliar with that work, and of course, ever since then, it's been having a growing population of people who be like read it, become more familiar with it, and are now excited for it. Ever since that initial announcement, which is a really funny timeline to think about, but it's cool, you know. And of course, on top of that, they said they're still working on the Demon Slayer movies. Of course, and they'll have more announcements. They have like a new Token Ranbu film. I think it was announced last year, and I think it's coming this year, I believe. So they're busy, you know. My pie in the sky moment when they were doing the teasers for this upcoming announcement, it was like, what if this upcoming Ufotable thing is like they're announcing a new Dot Hack anime as part of like the new cross media project for Dot Hack Zero that Matsuyama was teasing? What if Ufotable's involved in their doing that?
We'll
But you
kick them
know,
out of the table. There's hope. There's chance.
oh yeah, and Ufotable also did another teaser that the Genshin thing that they're working on is still in the works. But no new announcements about that except of that project is still alive, and that was, I think that was first showed off like after like the first year of Genshin. It's been a long time since that was first revealed.
What will we do first, the Genshin animation project or Genshin on Switch?
Ooh.
I go for the anime first.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, we'll check back in early April when we announce, or when we see what the announcement related to the Tales series is for the 30th anniversary collaboration. All right. Unfortunately, having to change gears pretty significantly here, and I've got a few different like URLs kind of pulled up here to try to speak to these next couple topics. And I'm not 100% sure the best way to introduce these, because it was kind of a bang bang at the end of the week. Both of these headlines, not intricately related to each other, but in some ways they can be seen that way. So what we first saw, I believe this was it Thursday? The PlayStation news? It was like 2 days ago at
Yeah.
the time of recording. It was announced that Sony is shutting down Bluepoint Games. Bluepoint, which famously had worked on several Sony IPs for remakes, Shadow of the Colossus and Demon Souls, prior to being acquired by Sony, then working on a God of War live action game of some sort. We learned about a year ago that that was no longer proceeding. We weren't sure
Live
what they were
service,
working
not
on.
live action.
Sorry, I meant live service, but I said the
Yeah.
wrong thing. My brain
Yeah.
went ahead of my mouth. But yeah, and we didn't know, that wasn't gonna come to fruition. And it turns out that they were never able to get their feet underneath them for another project. And now Bluepoint Games is a huge shocker to I think a lot of people, especially fans of their remakes, being shut down. So and part of a list of Sony studios that have been either shut down or at least impacted heavily by layoff. So before I introduce the other topic that kind of followed the day after on the other side, when I saw this, I remember posting in the Discord like, "What? They're shutting down Bluepoint?" Like, that's just a headline that sounds like made up. Like, for the first half of PS5 life, people thought that Bluepoint was carrying Sony, and that was before they were even technically acquired. Especially with the Demon Souls remake, I think that was a headline, at least for our purview from our site's perspective.
No, I
Yeah.
thought they were secretly like doing a Bloodborne remake or something, like a studio that's like
That
excels
was
in remakes, and they're like gone. It's like what? Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm more fond of their remasters than their remakes. Like I like because they did like Gravity Rush remastered, and they did like I think of Uncharted Nathan
The
Drake
Uncharted
collection.
trilogy. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and also the God of War, like the old God of War, remasters that they did on PlayStation 3, I believe. Like those, like that's the Blue Point I really like. The remakes are hit and miss, in terms of like they're better playing, but they do kind of botch up a little bit of the artistic aspects
I
of it.
I like Demon Souls, I think the way I described it was there was a technical marvel. I don't want to discount that, but man, it was an artistic disgrace. I do not like that remake.
Yeah. But either way, that they were at the end of the day, they were a very, very, very highly skilled, highly competent studio when it came to
Oh
creating
yeah.
games, whether it was from remaking or remastering. So I think it's just like a very tremendous loss and just another blight on Sony's decisions
It
on
really
where it's
feels like
going.
this week it's been like Sony and Microsoft trading blows, like punching each other in the gut. It's like
Yeah, with
Well,
this
yeah,
first, like, yeah, go for it.
I was going to
Uh,
introduce the other headline, and then we can
yeah.
like bounce between them. So, and because people, a lot of people, grew up with PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 1, and PlayStation 5 has had a lot of stumbles, and depending on your point of view, to different levels. Talking about like the leadership changes, the CEO, between Sean Layden going to Jim Ryan and Herman Hulst and all that stuff, and there's a lot you could dive into there. But then, Microsoft the next day, almost proverbially saying, "Hold my beer." So the headline here, the primary headline here is that Phil Spencer, longtime CEO of Xbox, is retiring. Sarah Bond, who was the president of Xbox, who was long seen as kind of like going to eventually replace Phil Spencer, also has resigned. So the leadership underneath Xbox, underneath Microsoft, is going to be who was formerly Microsoft's AI exec, Asha Sharma, and then Matt Booty is now chief content officer. He's been at Xbox for a while, and he's got a number of interesting like quotations attributed to him. Matt Booty is the one who famously said like what was it, like sleeping under your desk during crunch time was like a badge of honor. Um, AI can do our
not to,
QA potentially, and Microsoft and
not to
AI is
mention,
is like a whole other can of
yeah,
worms. Go ahead.
not to mention all the stuff that he said during that Double Fine documentary, which was very illuminating. I can't believe they okayed releasing that because it did not paint him in a good light whatsoever.
So yeah, the TLDR is, Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond are out. Asha Sharma and Matt Booty are in. They have all four people involved have like across IGN and Bloomberg and everyone covering this have their emails to their staff about like their talking about how Phil Spencer's been there since '88. How Matt Booty is going to take ownership of certain projects. Of course, a lot of the I don't know if baggage is the right term, but Microsoft and AI has been the headline for like the last 2 years, and the person replacing Phil Spencer is coming from the president of Microsoft's core AI product, talking about Copilot and all those things. And of course, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella is been pushing that for the last several years. And now it's hard to look at this and be excited. Is what I
Which of
come
his
from as a
three AI advisors told him to make this change?
yeah, like yeah, which chatbot suggested this. But now certain people have tried to read between the lines about what this might mean, and it's been difficult. I have a few headlines here or a few URLs here about like what's known for sure and what is speculation. A lot of the articles are using terms like Sarah Bond has unceremoniously resigned, suggesting that maybe she was passed over, but I don't know if we know that for certain. Um, Talking about obviously the acquisitions from Microsoft over the last like 6, 7, 8 years, of course, climaxing with the 2022 acquisition of like $69 billion for Activision Blizzard, and how that has kind of been an albatross across Microsoft's neck. The many shortcomings of the Xbox One and the Xbox Series. And of course, there's studios that we love that are now find themselves underneath the Xbox. Obsidian, In Exile, Double Fine, you mentioned. It's just this. There's a lot we could unpack here, and it's frustrating to read because there's not a lot of confidence that I see personally in the new leadership, what they've said previously and what they've said coming out in the last couple of days, that really
Not
gives me
to
a lot of reason to be
mention
excited.
some of the
But
stuff that people have dug up about, like like the natalism stuff. That's not great, but we'll see, I guess.
What do you look, Asha and their message had three. They messaged three commitments. First, great games. Second, the return of Xbox, and third, future of play. What's the matter? It sounds great.
I'm really excited for the future of play.
Are you sure they didn't wrote that with AI?
I mean, that definitely does sound like their message. Uh, um, I don't know, man. I mean, Xbox has been going on a downward trend for years, and this is just like even more so. Like when you think of when you think of Xbox not doing enough of a downward trend, they somehow find new ways to really go off the deep end. Oh man, it was not a great week for the Sony and Xbox with their news. Like, I'm overjoyed here with my dot hack announcement as the rest of the gaming industry continues to. Man,
Yes.
I'm just like here on my lone small little platform, be like, yay, dot hack, let's go. While there's a 360-degree ring of fire around me. Well, I'm going, let's go.
The thing that I try to be like reflective about is I think back to however many years ago it was when Microsoft announced that they were acquiring Obsidian and Exile. So quaint compared to everything since, because that was prior to the BDS stuff, the Gaza stuff, prior to AI being really much of a thought in our head, like in terms of the way it is now. And just thinking like, yeah, these studios that have been around for a long, long time and have had so many like, tumultuous eras that maybe they can find some stability. And I probably spoke positively about it at the time. And I'm looking back and being like, man, like I'd probably cringe, sorry to use a millennial term, if I listened to like how I was probably excited about it, at the time, and to see where it's come since then, I'm just like, what a disappointment. Because every single time it seems like that there might be a sliver of a chance that things might be for the better. It ends up being like, nope, a mirage, or nope, you were hoping for too much. 'Cause that's who I really feel for, is like the people who, are underneath all of this and just want to
Yeah.
know, like, is their studio going to be, we've seen like Hi-Fi Rush, the Tango Gameworks, that's what it was. That's the go-to, right? They release a game that was critically and commercially successful for, it doesn't matter if your game's good, bad, successful or not. It's just at the whims of the C-suite executives whether or not you're going to have a job the next month.
Yeah,
And
not to mention,
that's the thing
remember
that's most frustrating.
at the time, like, shout out to Jeff Grubb, like, calling it out before it happened back then. But it's like, at the time, like, all of Microsoft's messaging was, yeah, this game has been critically and commercially successful. And then they closed the studio and said, saying, oh, yeah, it wasn't commercially successful, when people were told the entire reason that you subscribe to Game Pass is so these companies don't have to worry about the actual sales of the games. Ugh.
I just think back to me like high school age, really excited about my Xbox 360. It was like I jumped around like an N64, PlayStation 1 and 2, Xbox 360. And at the time it was like, I don't know, it was exciting. It was cool. Of course, I was much younger and naive, and just everything since that era. I'm like, we as for our website, the Blue Dragon Lost Odyssey era of Xbox gaming. You could even, Xbox, the original Xbox era, like Azaric, and a lot of those like interesting little almost like double A culty titles for that. Like, it was an interesting console in feedback or in retrospect. And ever since then, there's like, what do we look back on in the Xbox Series, Xbox One, late Xbox 360 era that we really point to and say that was a good time? Like, I look at all the Kinect stuff, never really landed. Xbox One is a well-worn or like a well-discussed, flop. Xbox Series maybe had a few good ideas, but nothing was executed to any level of lasting success, at least from my perspective. But
Yeah,
this
but
is certainly going to be an evolving story for the next like month, or month is probably shortchanging it. Like, I have no idea what to expect coming out of Microsoft for the rest of like what are we looking at for Microsoft in 2026? Like, what is down the road that we
Forza
fable?
Horizon.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. Yeah, but I think that's like first party stuff because I try to think of what the developer direct also showed. Like that Beast of Reincarnation, but that's third party.
Yeah. But even then, like, let's say, even if they release a studio underneath their label, sorry, not release a studio, release a game underneath their label that we're really excited about, and it's really, something that we want to champion, and reviews well or whatever. It almost feels like dirty in terms of like, yeah, but Microsoft, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the future holds from here. The fucking God knows, like they encourage even more AI, like generative AI implementation with the future of Xbox under their new leadership. You know,
I thought they
who
already
knows?
learned their lessons. I thought they were like, oh, we're gonna take it back after all the losses that they took.
Oh hell
Like,
no,
oh,
dude!
they're
They're
gonna
going all
double
in,
down.
dude. They've continued to cut doubling and tripling down. They don't give a fuck. Like that's kind of the American economy right now. Unfortunately, it's not even just Microsoft. It's many other
If it wasn't for like
factors.
all of the money literally being thrown down the drain for AI spending, we would be in not just recession, possibly a depression. It is fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, and also just throwing it back to the other side of the pond here, but in the topic of like, even if you're commercially and critically beloved and successful, like Bluepoint was also in that same conversation. And I remember you were talking about this, Adam, when it was first announced. Like, this is kind of weird to also just reveal after the announcement of that God of War trilogy remake, because that's like a project that you would think they would be working on, because that seems to be that's kind of their bread and butter in terms of like those sorts of projects. But that it's just so bizarre, just off the heels of that announcement. Now, from that state of play, just several days later, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we shut down Bluepoint Games. It's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
So, like, we've talked about, creative criticisms of some of the remakes they've done, and I'm sure Bluepoint didn't necessarily want to just be the remake studio forever. Like, I'm sure they had their ambitions and whatnot, but just kind of like, according to the reporting, they were on a live service game, and then that got canceled, and then they basically couldn't find anything else. And people have said this, just PlayStation has so many like classic franchises in their catalog, and maybe it's not the most interesting thing or what have you, and it's certainly not like, I'm not talking about you know income potential or whatever, but just like, you could have them working on just various remasters or ports, or even like a smaller scale remake of some of your classic stuff. And yeah, just you couldn't find them something to do. I don't know, it feels like I admit I don't run a business and I don't know how game dev works. We're just observers, but it just, like, it's in 5 years and you have nothing to show for it. So it's just kind of a
And it's not like we're talking about like, oh no, poor Sony. Their finances are so limited and thin, and they're scrounging for resources. It's not like we're talking about like a very small scale company. It's like, no, it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
As we're discussing this, I found a Reddit post from 6 days ago saying, "Speculation: Bluepoint Studios is remaking God of War trilogy," and it's just like,
Oh no.
oh yeah, yep. Anyways, so
Yeah, why weren't they tasked on doing that instead of
Right.
being closed down? So why is Sony Santa Monica having a separate team to remake the original God of War trilogy instead of making something new? I thought the whole point of buying Bluepoint was so that
yeah.
and it's one of those things
Man.
we'll never know all the details. Like, maybe Bluepoint, maybe the talent there really wanted to have something their own and not remake, someone else's work. But was that really a live, um,
Live
a
service
God
God
of
of
War
War. Yeah.
live service game? Like, is that what Bluepoint's talent wanted to work on? I will never know definitively, but it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to believe. So yeah.
My speculation is like this is all caused by Jim Ryan. I think he probably
Jim
demanded
Ryan and
them to
Herman
go.
Holst, yeah.
It's all going from there. It all stems from them.
I'm
And,
having a
and it's,
brain
it's
fart here.
also
Who's CEO now? Is it Herman Holst? Is that who replaced him?
it's like a
Yeah.
joint thing. It's like Herman Holst and another individual. I forgot his name off the top of my head, but I believe it's
It's a
like a
Japanese
joint
guy.
leadership at Sony. Yeah.
And I think Herman Holst took like a little bit more backseating after Concord failed. I believe that's how it went, or something like that.
Yeah, there
because
definitely was
Concord
ripples
was
from the
his
Concord's
baby.
shit.
He believed in it, which is like, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's where the belief got him. But
Don't worry, guys. Don't worry, guys. I'm sure that Sony's prospects will turn over a new leaf. After all, Marathon comes out in 2 weeks.
I'm like, if I were in Bungie's shoes, I'd be fucking scared. That other live service game, like the one with the hacker
Guard.
games, whatever. I forgot what it was
Fair
called.
thinking
Games.
about-
Oh, Fair Games. That one's especially interesting because people keep forgetting or not even realizing necessarily. Fair Games has generative AI
Yeah.
assets.
Yes. That's
So it's like,
the one thing I remember about it.
So it's like it's already like I have trust that Marathon could be a success. I have no trust that Fair Games is going to be a success because of that albatross around its neck. Because
But Marathon got caught for generative AI too, with like someone caught.
No,
No,
it
it
wasn't
wasn't generative AI. It wasn't generative AI. It was
It
plagiarism.
wasn't. It was like good old fashioned human done plagiarism, knowingly done.
Yeah, it's not what's
I don't know what's
AI.
worse, Gen AI or plagiarism.
Both are pretty
Same.
fucking bad. It's not like there's no need to have Olympics over which is worse.
Yeah,
Both are pretty
I was
fucking
being
bad.
glib about it, but it's like it wasn't good. Thankfully, like apparently that's been solved. It's like
Yeah,
the person that was plagiarized on is, I guess they paid them. I guess they're
I believe it's a
fine.
settlement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but either way, like like if who knows how Marathon will land at the end of the day. But then you also have that Horizon live service gatherings, I think, or whatever, like just recently announced. Like I'd be all the live service game prospects under Sony. I'd be like, oh god, because you have to imagine. But they look back on like stuff as recently as Highguard, for example. Well, it's just like, if your game doesn't reach a certain metric within like day feels like 3, there's already like, okay, what are we doing to scale down plans?
Yeah.
I think out of all the podcasts that we've held over the years, this series of headlines is one of the most like incongruent, like in terms of like, yay studio, yay crossovers or collabs, boo, giant billionaire companies lay off AI.
It's
I
okay.
don't know.
Next
Like,
week we get to talk about the Pokemon announcement.
Yep.
I believe it's next week, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, Pokemon Presents. Yeah, so yeah, Gen 10 maybe next week. We'll see about that. As for this
You're
week,
not
we
gonna
have
spend the $20 for the new ROM.
Well, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it.
yeah, there's a few other headlines here, or yeah, just other announcements for this week. It's just mid-scale ones here. One of those is the announcement. I'll just jump to that one. Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen are going to launch on Nintendo Switch on at the end of the month on February 27th. I actually don't know much of the details here about these releases. I saw the announcement, but I didn't see any of the details about like do you have to have like expansion pack plus for these?
No,
or
it's
is it just something
they're
you shop?
standalone. You buy them for $20 each. That's it.
At least
Yeah,
that's
the
preferable.
whole-
It's not on the.
But it's
Go ahead.
separated by region, so like they'll have multiple entries in the eShop by region on them. That's what I saw.
Yeah,
Like,
and the reason why is because it is essentially a ROM, but the reason it's not on NSO is because they don't want you to be able to have save data backup, and they don't want you to be able to like save state and rewind.
It's so dumb, honestly. And I guess there was like some wording about Pokemon Home connectivity that was taken out as well.
It'll get Pokemon Home compatibility eventually. It's just the thing that I've seen some people say, "Oh, it's weird. It's really weird that Pokemon Home isn't usually available day and date with these games." And it's like, no, I mean, they've been doing this for so long, and considering the same limitations this release has, it's clear that it's all intentional and that they don't want Home to be available like for the first couple of months, so that it's like a fresh experience or whatever.
I love this FAQ that they raised. Why are you handling these classic games differently? In celebration of 30 years of Pokemon, we thought it'd be fun to return to the ultimate versions of the original Pokemon adventures in the Kanto region with these special releases.
So if the reason why they're releasing these as separate SKUs for different languages is because that was how the originals worked, and this is essentially just a ROM, does that mean they're not even going to bother to fix the Raikou Entei glitch?
That's a lot of that's effort that you're asking.
This is going way too deep into the weeds. So roaming Pokemon used to be a thing, not so much nowadays because they've changed how Pokemon fundamentally works on a like base level in terms of like the game world and whatnot. Used to be, you had these things called routes. They were separate areas in a Pokemon game. And you would have legendary Pokemon that didn't have a preset location but would roam across different routes and would appear in that encounter table. In Ruby and Sapphire, you had the Latios. Latios, obviously the original roaming legendaries were the legendary beasts, Raikou, Entei, Suicune. You could get Raikou, Entei, or Suicune in FireRed, LeafGreen, and it was dependent on what your starter you picked was. It was the one that was strong to yours. So if you picked Bulbasaur, it would be Entei. If you picked Squirtle, it would be Raikou. If you picked Charmander, it would be Suicune. Problem. The way that you would want to try and capture these roaming legendaries is you would want to use Mean Look or like Block to prevent them from running because they're coded to run almost immediately. Raikou and Entei both learn a move called Roar. The problem is that when a Pokemon uses Roar that's a wild encounter, the game is coded so it'll think that you fainted the Pokemon, and if you faint a roaming legendary, they're just gone for good. So if you try to capture Entei or Raikou as normally intended without using a Master Ball, and you use Block or you use like Mean Look to lock them in, they will use Roar, they will run away, and the game will think, oh, you fainted them, they're gone. You would never be able to get them again. It's fun.
I have a sneaky suspicion you'll be able to emulate that awesome experience in this upcoming re-release.
Now that I look at this FAQ, it is like interesting that this is an official. Like it almost feels like they're like preempting the questions, but in a very poor way. Like, why aren't you releasing the original versions? You mentioned we want to release the ultimate versions. Will you add the original versions to Nintendo Classic Collection Online? And then they say like the following game is currently available on the Game Boy Nintendo Classic Collection, Pokemon Trading Card Game. I'm just like, what?
Thank you, Nintendo.
Like, will you add Red and Blue? It's like you can buy a trading card game, which I'm sure is also great, but no. Well, yes, but actually no. All right, let's back up here. A couple trailers. Late March release from NIS America and Gem Drops. Etrange Overlord. I think this was announced like last November or so. From Broccoli Studio. Actually, I'm not familiar
Broccoli
with
is the
them.
Japanese publisher.
Oh, okay. So it's Gem Drops is the developer. So that's a Star Ocean remaster developer there. So this is releasing at the end of March worldwide on PS4, Switch, and PC. So they just NIS America released a gameplay
It's
trailer.
kind of funny because it
for
feels
that
and
upcoming
looks like an NIS game, and it's NIS America, but it's technically like not really an NIS game. It's just kind of an ex-NIS game that NIS America picked up.
Yeah.
But it's like I watched this gameplay trailer, and this is I have no idea how good or interesting this game will end up being. But like I watched this gameplay trailer, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Because it's like
Yeah, I didn't. Well, when I had that preview for the Switch 2 version of Trails Beyond the Horizon a few months ago, I actually had a chance to play a bit of this too. I just didn't think it was enough of an RPG to cover it. It's neat. It's very much an adaptation though, because they also had like a copy of the original manga. I read a bit of that, and it's like, man, this is very abridged compared to that. But
I didn't know this was based off of a manga.
yeah,
it's just kind of chaotic, and yeah, like I was watching the trailer trying to like grasp like what am I even looking at?
Adam,
yeah,
like,
the trailers don't really do it justice. It's definitely like pretty basic in terms of like gameplay for most of it, but then you have boss fights where you have to like look at the rotating, like I guess for lack of a better term, the sushi conveyor belt of stuff to throw at your enemies. And there's like a box where it's like, okay, you can grab a bomb, and during specific attacks, you can throw the bomb at like its legs to stun it, so you can deal more damage. It's like, it seems like it'll be neat. I don't know
But
if
is
I'll
that
play
conveyor
it.
belt supposed to be like the staff of like a musical score? Is that what I'm looking at?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. You should watch the gameplay trailer. It's only a minute long. It's very chaotic, like Adam said.
Yeah.
Coming out in late March. Well, this one I guess we could have talked about back when we were talking about Falcom with Proud Nordics and Beyond the Horizon with Mikhail. Kyoto Xanadu, of course, announced not too long ago at the Partner Direct. Starting to get into the media release for that, slated to release this summer. We just got a primer for 9 of the characters. I think it's 9 of the characters. Their seiyus and a quick description and artwork for the cast of that game. Going into sales very quickly here. So Nioh 3, of course, a game that released at the beginning of the month. I'm currently in the middle of this right now. It was the quickest Nioh game to reach 1 million units sold. Maybe not a surprise because it was the first one to release concurrently on console and PC. The Nioh series is at 10 million units sold. So seems like a big success there. Shiren the Wanderer, that series has surpassed 3 million copies worldwide. Mewgenics from Edmund McMillan, talent behind like Binding of Isaac, a game that's kind of been popular ever since its release early in the month in all the social media spaces, has reached 1 million copies sold. Here's one that I wasn't expecting to read this week. We got some updates for some sales for the NieR series. NieR Replicant, of course, the remaster that released in 2021, has reached over 2 million copies worldwide. NieR Automata has reached over 10 million copies worldwide. To celebrate the 10 million copy milestone for NieR Automata, the NieR Twitter account released some new artwork. There was a celebratory like trailer, and at the end of the trailer, there was a tiny little snippet of teaser text saying NieR Automata to be continued. So
I feel like it's like
what do you think about
almost a
that?
nothing. It's almost a nothing text description because that could mean
I'm kind of
anything.
with you, but yeah.
Yeah, like to be continued. What in any new stage drama series or play to be continued in, I don't know, a new OST that they're gonna release. Is it gonna be an offline version of NieR Reincarnation? Because you can technically say that that's to be continued.
Mhm.
And it's also like like I would love to see an offline version of Reincarnation just with better gameplay, but it's all because that game is pretty important to the NieR series. Like there's stuff in it that like you cannot really take back in certain ways for the greater NieR, whatever you call
Yeah,
NieR.
it's interesting because I guess not really inside baseball, but that NieR orchestra concert is like structured, like the one I went to a few years ago is structured like a direct follow-up to like Ending E from Automata, like a direct follow-up. And apparently, according to people that like my friends that also went to it and had played Reincarnation, they said, yeah, this also directly ties into that game's story too in some way. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it's like apparently it really is important, and that's
Like
they need
people
to
are
they need
people
to
aren't
stop
lying.
doing
Like
this shit with mobile
yeah,
games. They
yeah.
need to stop.
But people aren't lying when they say NieR Reincarnation is NieR 3, like straight up it is. And it's funny because it's not even like uncharacteristic characteristic of like a mobile game of NieR to do this. Like Yoko Taro's been doing this for fucking ever when it comes to
Yep.
I
in
remember
games.
the entire twist, like at the end, like after ending B of NieR Automata was spoiled for me because of knowing the plot synopsis of the stage play that basically already spelled it out before Automata even released.
That was pretty cool.
Ugh.
That was really cool. Yeah, that's so I don't know. Like I for me it's like it's cool that NieR Automata, NieR in general keeps on doing well, but it this to be continued thing means kind of nothing until they have something substantial to show for it in terms of like it's a new game on PC and console that you can play single player.
Just a few more headlines and dates as we wrap up this podcast. This one I actually didn't know much about, but Adam put a fun note here. Released just a couple days ago. A remaster of WiZmans World. WiZmans World Retry is now available on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. I guess this is a remaster of a DS game that was up until this point just exclusive to Japan, never made its way overseas. So now it's available like worldwide. So Adam, I don't know if you had any context for this.
Yeah, like this is one of,
WiZman.
yeah, so this is like, I have no idea if this game is any good. I have no idea if this remaster is any good. But just the fact that someone decided, let's take this 2010 DS JRPG that's never been officially translated, let's just translate it and release it on everything. I'm like, hey, that's actually pretty cool. So I have no idea if this game is any good or if it was worth it. But the alternative was that this option was just going to be a Japanese DS game forever, and that would be it. So yeah, I think
remember
it's just
playing
kind
it at
of
a
cool.
Steam Next Fest. It's like its demo. I was like, this is kind of neat, but I have no time to like actually play it anytime soon. So, but I would like to play it eventually, just because like it's kind of neat that like they did this.
A new Idea Factory game released on consoles in the West this week. Calamity Angels Special Deliveries. I guess it released in Japan last summer. It's now available in the West, but on console only. It'll launch for Steam later this year. You can get the demo on Steam, I suppose, but I haven't heard much reception to this one yet. But it is available now. At the end of the month, and just a couple days from the time of this recording, Inazuma 11 Victory Road is getting the Road Orion and Lumen DLC. So for those, I know, obviously Josh covered this extensively last year, and I know in our general chat here on the Discord, I know we have a few people that are currently playing through this. So level 5, I don't know how they keep churning out these little content packs for all the games they've released, but it seems like it's they're supporting their projects very well.
A game that will never end, they say.
Mhm. Mhm.
I need to revisit this sometime and get through all of the stuff that they added.
Mhm.
I don't know when that'll be. I know there's many hours ahead to even get to them. um, you know, great that they keep on doing it. Like this is, I don't know how you make another Inazuma 11 game after this because it feels like this is it. There's the ultimate Inazuma 11 game, and I don't think nothing can ever take that away from this game. Like they said they were working on a sequel to Victory Road. I'm like, I don't know what that actually means and what that package looks like, and I hope you're not trying to like outdo what you did here because that sounds insane.
And
if you try
also
to do
there
that.
is so last time I checked, they're still doing Inazuma 11, the first remake of the first game.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's still a thing.
Yep.
Let me actually
Yep.
check. I will check while you continue. That last time I checked, it said still 2026, like this year.
Drova Forsaken Kin, PC game that came out in 2024, is launching on mobile devices this April, on April 23rd. Oh, it did also get on consoles. It's available on consoles now. I forgot about that too. But yeah, mobile coming in the end of April. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Before we move on for this, one, it's cool that they released a mobile version of this. Like I think having more like just big single player RPGs for mobile devices that are actual games and not gotcha games. It was once supposed to be like the promise of mobile gaming back then before free to play model happened. But two, also it's kind of fun that they have a bullet point on this that says no AI generated content. Like that has to be like something you I guess now put in the in feature lists.
Yeah. It's going to be
Yeah.
kind of a badge, I feel like, at this point forward. Like, hey, our game has no AI content in it. And I think that's valid too. Like, I have nothing
Yeah.
against it.
Yeah. I know.
Oh,
And
I actually didn't realize this. Also, looking, the first area of the game is available for free. So I guess it basically has kind
oh,
of like a
cool.
mobile demo. It's kind of neat.
Nice.
I fumbled this earlier. Let me try again. Dragon is Dead is going to be launching on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch on April 23rd. It originally launched for Steam in 2025, and it was an early access in 2024. So console version at the end of April. And then June release, last one here, Voidling Bound, which is a monster taming action RPG, is releasing on June 9th.
Junior played that at Bit Summit last year, so he has like a mini preview of it.
Oh, cool. All right, what are we looking forward to next week? Let me see.
guess
So
Pokemon announcements.
Next week will be. Oh, that's true. We already talked about
On
that.
announcements, Resident Evil Requiem's not an RPG, but I'm going to be playing
I'm
it.
sure people will play it. Yep.
Careful with all
Tales
the
of
loops
Berseria
happening.
remastered.
Don't worry. I've had a foolproof solution to not getting spoiled on Resident Evil Requiem yet. I've been playing a bunch of Resident Evil games in VR, and I cannot browse my phone or my desktop if I'm using a VR headset. This is a
True.
foolproof solution.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
And we've mentioned this last week, but the English release on PC for Utaru Mono Zan 2 is in just a couple days. So, all right, so we'll start to wrap up this podcast. All of the previews and reviews and interviews that we talked about, Paranormasight, Proud Nordics, Avowed, People of Note, all of those are on our website at rpgsite.net. Join our Discord, discord.gg/rpgsite. If you search for RPG space site on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, you should be able to find us. On whatever podcast service of choice that you listen to us, leave us a like, leave us a rating, leave us a comment on the site post. We'd like to see those. Until you hear from us next week, stay safe, take care. We'll talk to you next time.
I really hope there's no Gen AI in the new dot hack, man. I'm praying to God. Suck.